It was one of those nights where the air in the dispatch room feels thicker than it should. Not hot, not cold, just heavy. The hum of the fluorescent lights had been in my ears for hours, blending with the quiet hiss of the computer fans and the occasional burst of static from the police radios. Nights like that make time feel slow. It was just past 1 a.m. when the phone lit up. Line 3. I slipped on my headset, pressing the button. 911. What's your emergency? No answer. I repeated it, slower this time. 911. Do you need police, fire, or medical? Still nothing. For a moment, I thought the line was dead. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not the shallow kind you get from a panic caller. This was wet, deliberate. Like someone was holding the phone too close to their mouth. Hello? Can you speak? I asked. My voice was even, but my stomach tightened. The breathing stayed steady. Not fast, not slow. A faint click sounded in the background, maybe from a phone shifting against something. No other noise. No TV, no cars, no voices. Just that sound. I tried again. If you're in danger, tap the phone twice. Silence. Then a long inhale, followed by a low exhale, moist and uncomfortably close to the mic. I muted my headset and glanced at the console. The line was still active. Caller ID popped up, and my screen pulled the address from the system. 127 Carver Street. That made me pause. Carver Street was on the far end of town. Old houses, half of them boarded up. And 127, if I remembered right, that one had been vacant for years. I unmuted. Sir, or ma'am, I have your location. I'm sending help, but I need to know if you can move to safety. No response, just the breathing. I typed the address into the CAD system for the officers, noting open line. No voice. Possible distress. Then I hit the tone to patch it through. Unit 4 to 2, 4 to 3, respond to 127 Carver Street. Possible open line emergency. Officer Marlowe's voice crackled over the radio. Copy that. En route. While they drove, I kept the line open. Sometimes callers can't talk because they're hiding or the attacker's nearby. But this breathing wasn't quick or nervous. It was measured, like they wanted me to hear it. I leaned back, closing one ear to the headset, listening for background clues. Somewhere deep under the breath, there was a faint noise, a soft creak like old wood shifting. Then another, slow, spaced apart, almost like someone was crawling. The hair on my arms prickled. Marlowe, I said into the radio, be advised I'm picking up background movement, maybe from inside the house. He gave a short acknowledgement. Minutes passed, and the breathing never changed. I imagined the person on the other end, face inches from the phone, lips wet, barely moving, watching something, waiting for something. Dispatched to 4 to 2 status? I asked. Pulling up now, Marlowe replied. No lights on. Place looks abandoned. I pressed the mic again. Caller's still on the line. Unknown number of occupants. There was a pause. Then Marlowe came back, voice low. Front door's ajar. I could hear the faint crunch of his boots through the radio. The breathing in my headset got louder, closer, like the person had leaned right into the receiver. I almost pulled the earpiece back. Then, for the first time, I heard something else. A voice. It was faint, just above a whisper, and so low I couldn't tell if it was words or just sound. My pulse quickened. Marlowe, I think the caller just said something. Can you confirm if you see anyone inside? Nothing from Marlowe. Marlowe, do you copy? The breathing filled my ear. This time it wasn't steady. It was faster, closer. I pulled the phone away for a second, then brought it back. Who's in the house with you? And that's when the line went dead. Not a click, not a hang up, just the instant flat hum of no connection. I tried redialing, but it came back with the automated tone. This number is not in service. On the radio, Marlowe's voice cut in. Dispatch, there's nobody here. House is empty. Looks like it's been empty for a while. No furniture, no lights. Dust everywhere. I stared at the address on my screen. Are you sure? The call was active for over 7 minutes. I traced it to that exact spot. Yeah, well, he said, there's no sign anyone's been in here for a long time. Except, he trailed off. Except what? I asked. Except there's a phone on the floor in the hallway. Landline. Looks old. Cord's cut clean through. I didn't answer right away. My eyes flicked to the call log. The number that had come through wasn't a cell. It was a landline. Marlowe continued. There's dust on everything except the phone. And he hesitated again. There's something else. What is it? Crawl space in the hall. Hatch was open when we got here. Looks like something was moving around under there. Dust disturbed. Handprints in the wood. I felt cold. Marlowe, secure the scene. I'm ending this call record. He didn't reply. Just a short burst of static. The rest of the shift, I kept looking at that call log. Landline. Disconnected number. 7 minutes of breathing. By morning, the entry was gone from the system. No record, no address hit, no audio file. Like the call never happened. But I still remember that sound, the steady, wet breath right in my ear, and the faint creak of wood beneath something crawling toward the phone. IT was just after 2 in the morning when the call came in. The graveyard shift has a certain rhythm. Bursts of chaos followed by stretches of absolute silence. You start to feel the quiet pressing on you after a while, like the walls are leaning in. The headset beeped. 911, what's your emergency? A man's voice, low and shaky. She's right above me. I straightened in my chair. Sir, can you tell me your address? He hesitated. I could hear his breathing, fast, shallow, like he was trying to keep it quiet. Sir, I need your location. He whispered something, and I had to ask him to repeat it. 124, Brecker's Hollow. I typed it in. No results. Not just no results for his address. The street itself didn't exist in the system. I tried different spellings, cross streets. Nothing. Sir, I can't find your address. Can you describe where you are? He sounded almost offended when he replied. I told you. I'm in the crawl space. She's right above me. I can hear her hands. I swallowed. Is this your home? No, he whispered. No, I don't know this place. I woke up here. Something in his voice made my skin prickle. Not fear exactly, but confusion, like he'd been dropped into the middle of a nightmare and was still figuring out the rules. I tried to keep my tone calm. What do you mean you woke up there? Were you taken? The man's breath caught. I heard a faint thud from his side of the line, then a slow dragging sound above him. That's her, he said, his voice so quiet I barely caught it. She's moving. My stomach tightened. Sir, I'm sending help. I just need to know what you see around you. Anything that can help me find you. He whispered quickly, like he was afraid of talking too loud. It's dirt under me. Wood above. Smells like wet rope. I can't sit up. My head touches the beams. It's too small. I typed notes for the officers, marking the location as unknown rural structure. My gut told me this wasn't going to be an easy trace. There was another noise, a sharp creak, then another. The way he described it, the sound was moving from one side of the ceiling to the other. She's on her hands and knees, he said, trembling. I can hear the wood give under her weight. I can hear her breathing through her teeth. My mouth went dry. Sir, do you know what she looks like? No, his voice cracked. But I think she knows me. The dragging stopped. Silence hung on the line for several seconds. Then a soft tapping above him. 3 taps, evenly spaced. I think she's listening to you, he whispered. My hands hovered over the keyboard, frozen. Sir, I want you to stay calm. Don't move. Keep your voice low. He let out a small, shaky laugh. I can't move. I'm stuck here. My legs. I think they're tied. The tapping stopped. Then the creaking started again, closer this time. I can see the dust falling through the boards, he said. She's right above my face. My brain was racing. I'm tracing your call. I need you to keep talking to me. Okay. But the trace wasn't working. No location data, just a dead zone. Like the signal wasn't coming from anywhere at all. Then he said something I'll never forget. I don't think this place is supposed to be here. What do you mean? It's too wrong. The air's heavy. My ears feel like they're popping. I think his breathing quickened. I think it's under something else. Like another house. But not a neighborhood. The boards are old, but the dirt feels fresh. Do you understand? I didn't. Not really. But I wrote it all down. There was a long pause, and then his whisper dropped even lower. She stopped. I strained to listen. The line was so quiet I could hear my own pulse in my ears. Then the tiniest sound with fibers cracking under weight. She's looking through the cracks, he said. I can see her eye. My throat tightened. What does it look like? He took a long, trembling breath. It's not moving right. Like it's rolling in place. Like it's too big for the hole. I was typing a desperate message to the nearest unit when the sound changed, a scraping, like nails or fingertips dragging slowly along the wood above him. "She's going to open it," he whispered. "She's going to pull me up." I started to speak, but his voice suddenly rose, sharp with panic. "Don't let her." The line erupted in noise, a rush of static, then a loud crack. He screamed once, short and cut off. Then silence. I kept calling his name, over and over, but there was nothing on the other end. Eventually, the line went dead. I checked the call log, hoping for some kind of trace, but there was nothing. No number, no duration, no recording. Like it had never happened. I sat there staring at the empty screen, my headset still on. And then, from somewhere deep in the building, I swear I heard it. 3 slow taps. Evenly spaced. 2 nights had passed since that call. The one with the man trapped in a crawl space. I kept telling myself not to think about it, but the details wouldn't leave me alone. The missing address, the sound of wood creaking, the way his voice went tight when he said she was right above him, and the part where the system had erased it. That's what really stuck with me. In the dispatcher system, nothing just vanishes. Every call leaves a record, unless someone or something takes it away. I'd half convinced myself I'd imagined it, or that it had been some elaborate prank. But then the second call came in. It was 3:27 a.m. I remember because I'd been staring at the clock, waiting for my shift to end, when the phone lit up. 911, what's your emergency? A woman's voice, tense but not panicked. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if this is an emergency, but I think there's something under my house. I straightened in my chair. Can you describe what you're hearing? She hesitated. It's hard to explain. It started maybe an hour ago. This dragging sound. Not like pipes, not like an animal. It's slow, and it stops when I move. I opened the dispatch log and began typing. What's your address, ma'am? 124 Breckers Hollow. I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Ma'am, can you repeat that? 124 Breckers Hollow. Just off Old County Road. It's the last place before the turn into the woods. I tried the address. This time, the system didn't reject it. The map pulled up a pinpoint in a rural stretch of land. But there was something off. No property lines. No neighboring structures except hers. And in the system's notes, under previous incidents, it simply said, data corrupt. Okay, I have your location, I said slowly. When you say dragging, do you mean like something crawling? Silence on her end. Yeah, she said finally, like elbows and knees on the dirt. And sometimes I can feel it in the floorboards. Just a little. My chest tightened. I glanced at the darkened corners of the dispatch room, half expecting to hear those same slow creaks in the ceiling above me. Ma'am, I'm going to send officers to check it out. Can you stay on the line with me? She gave a shaky laugh. You make it sound serious. I just want to make sure you're safe. I patched the call to the nearest unit. Marlowe again, and his new partner, Finch. Possible intruder under the residence. 124 Breckers Hollow. Copy. Finch's voice came back. While they drove, I kept the woman talking. I asked about her house, when she'd last been under it, whether she had a crawl space. She said she'd never been down there herself, but the hatch was in the kitchen floor. It's been painted shut since I moved in, she added. Landlord said it was nothing but pipes and dirt. The dragging started again while we were on the line. I heard it, faint but clear, through the headset. Is that it? I asked. Yes, she whispered. It's right under me. Oh God, I think it stopped again. Do you think it can hear me? My stomach turned. Ma'am, I need you to move to another room, away from the sound. I don't want to, she said. Her voice was trembling now. If I move, it'll move. I didn't know what to say to that. 2 minutes later, the officers arrived. I heard Finch knock and call out from her end of the line. She went to answer, leaving the phone on the counter. Through the headset, I caught the muffled exchange at her door, greetings, her explaining, their boots stepping inside. Then Finch's voice came over the radio. Dispatch, we're inside. I hear it too. A pause. Then Marlowe. We're checking the crawl space. Static filled my ear for a few seconds. Then Finch's voice again, quieter. Dispatch, the hatch isn't painted shut. Looks like it's been open a lot. Recently. I wrote that in the log. Do you see anyone underneath? Long silence. Then a sharp exhale from Marlowe. Negative, but it's big under here. bigger than the footprint of the house. What do you mean bigger? I asked. I mean, it keeps going. Like the crawl space connects to something else. Feels more like a tunnel. That was not in the property record. Wait, Finch said suddenly. There's something carved into the beams. Numbers. 124. The woman's address. That's not the weird part, Finch continued. There's more numbers. And dates. The most recent one is. Static swallowed the rest. Finch, repeat that, I said. The line crackled, then went dead silent. In my other ear, I heard the woman's voice again, faint and shaking. It's back. It's under the kitchen again. I want to tell her to get out of the house, but before I could, she said something that stopped me cold. It's whispering. It's saying the same thing over and over. What is it saying? She hesitated. She's right above me. I stared at the call log, my hands going numb. That was exactly what the man from 2 nights ago had said. Word for word. The dragging sound came through the headset again, louder now. I could hear the boards creaking under its weight. Marlowe, Finch, get out of there now, I said into the radio. No reply. The woman let out a gasp. Oh God, something's pushing up on the boards. I can see the wood bending. Get out, I said, almost shouting. There was a loud crack from her end of the line, then a scream. The call cut off. I tried hailing the officers again, over and over. Nothing. When backup arrived 20 minutes later, the house was empty. No sign of the woman. No sign of Marlowe or Finch. The hatch to the crawl space was shut tight, and when they pried it open, there was nothing underneath. Just dirt. No tunnel. The report I wrote that night didn't make sense, even to me. But I know what I heard. And somewhere, out there, under someone's floor, it's still crawling. By the time they call me back out to Brecker's Hollow, the place was already swarming with uniforms. It was 3 days after the second call. 3 days of me replaying those voices in my head. The man whispering from somewhere no map could find. The woman describing something crawling under her kitchen. And both of them saying the same words, in the same quiet, terrified tone. She's right above me. When the captain told me they were reopening the scene, I didn't ask why. I just drove out there, past the tree line, and into that pocket of rural dark where the houses sit far apart, and the air feels heavier. From the outside, the place looked like every other neglected rental. Siding peeling, porch sagging, weeds grown up around steps. But the way the officers moved around it told me they weren't treating this like any normal search. Marlowe wasn't there. Neither was Finch. When I asked where they were, no one gave me a straight answer. Inside, the air hit me first. Stale, damp, and under it something sour. Like wet fabric left in a sealed box. The kitchen was just like I remembered from the call description. Faded linoleum, low cabinets, a cheap wooden table. The hatch was in the middle of the floor, square cut, metal handle bolted on. The paint around it was chipped away, fresh scratches in the wood like someone had pried it open in a hurry. One of the officers, McBride, nodded at me. We found something. They'd pulled the hatch all the way open. A flashlight beam cut down into darkness. I crouched at the edge and peered in. It wasn't a crawl space. Not really. Crawl spaces are shallow, cramped. You could see the foundation walls from the hatch. This dropped down farther than it should have. The first few feet looked normal, dirt floor, wooden beams, but then it just kept going. How deep is it? I asked. McBride shook his head. Deeper than the house should allow. We sent 2 guys down. They didn't like what they saw. I could hear it even from up here, the faint echo of the space below, like standing over the mouth of a cave. They lowered a ladder, and I climbed down after them. The smell was stronger underneath. Damp earth, rot, and that sour tang of mildew. My boots sank slightly into the dirt. The beam from my flashlight cut across the space, wooden beams overhead, but no solid wall at the far end. Just darkness stretching away. McBride walked ahead, his light catching on something in the dirt. Clothes, not piles of laundry. These were scattered, half buried in the soil. Shirts, pants, jackets. Some torn, some stiff with age. The colors were faded to dull grays and browns. A few looked like they'd been down here for decades. Look at this, McBride said. He crouched and picked up a police radio. It was old, heavy, dust caked around the edges. The kind of radio that hadn't been standard issue for years. There were more of them, half a dozen, maybe more, lying in the dirt between the clothes. Some were cracked open, wires hanging. Others looked intact, but dead, their antennas bent. Where'd all this come from? I asked. McBride shrugged. Your guess is as good as mine. But that's not the worst of it. He led me farther in. The space widened, the beams above growing sparse. The ground here sloped down, like we were heading deeper underground. My light caught on something ahead, shapes along the dirt wall. Carvings. Numbers and letters scratched into the packed earth. Some shallow, some deep. Addresses. Dates. Names. I saw 124 Brecker's hollow more than once, in different handwriting. Other addresses I didn't recognize. Some dates from the last few months, some so old the edges had started to crumble away. And there were tally marks, dozens of them in uneven rows. I didn't want to ask what they meant. At the far end of the chamber, the dirt wall rose into a narrow tunnel. The opening was just tall enough for someone to crouch and crawl through. The air coming from it was cold. McBride's voice was low. We followed it about 20 feet. It curves left. Then we heard something. What kind of something? He glanced at the other officer with us before answering. Breathing. Not loud. Not close. But enough to make us turn around. I felt it then, that pressure in the air, like the space itself was holding its breath. McBride motioned for us to head back. But before I climbed the ladder, I turned and shined my light one last time into the darkness. Something caught the beam. It was a small square, maybe 3 feet across, set into the far dirt wall. A hatch. Wood, old and dark with age. The same kind of hatch you'd find in a kitchen floor. And on it, in big, uneven letters, was carved, entry point. We didn't open it. I don't think anyone wanted to. Back upstairs, the air felt even heavier. I kept looking at the kitchen hatch, thinking about how the one down there looked exactly the same. As we were leaving, McBride said quietly, "We're sealing it. This place. No one's coming back in here." But that night, during my shift, the thought kept circling in my head. If there was an entry point down there, then somewhere else, there's an exit. And if she could crawl under one house, she could crawl under any of them. I've answered thousands of calls in my career. Drunk arguments, car crashes, break-ins. Every one of them leaves something in your head. A sentence, a scream, a sound you'll remember long after you've hung up. But this wasn't like any of them. It was 2:17 in the morning. The graveyard shift is quiet most nights, quiet in a way that makes you restless. Too much coffee, too much humming from the fluorescent lights. Every tick of the wall clock feels louder than it should. I was halfway through an old thermos of burnt coffee, scrolling through last week's call logs just to keep my eyes from drooping when the line lit up. It was just one ring, then the click. 911. What's your emergency? Static. That's not unusual. Bad reception, wind, cheap cell phones, but this static had a strange depth to it, like there was more than one layer. Then the voice came through. I need your help. And I froze. Not because of what they said, but because it was my voice. Not just similar, not just close. It was exact. Same tone, same pacing, same faint rasp in the throat from too much caffeine and not enough water. The sound that comes after hours of talking to strangers in dim light. It was like someone had taken my own voice and fed it back to me. Sir, can you repeat that? I said, trying to keep my tone steady. I need your help, the voice said again. I'm in your house. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Nothing about it was, but because it was so absurd, my brain refused to treat it as real. My house. Yes. My voice, his voice, was quieter this time. It's not safe here. They're coming. And I can't get out. I swallowed, eyes darting to the other dispatchers a few desks away. No one was paying attention. What's your address? I asked, defaulting to procedure. You know my address, the voice said. I live where you live. The words hit me in a way I can't fully explain. It was like hearing someone describe your own thoughts while you were thinking them. That weird vertigo feeling when you see yourself in a dream. Except this wasn't a dream, and the voice wasn't in my head. Sir, I need you to tell me exactly where you are. A pause. Then, I'm in the dark. The furniture is wrong. The pictures on the walls aren't mine. But I know this is your house. I know because I remember buying it. I remember signing the papers. I remember. The voice trailed off into static, like it was being dragged away from the line. Sir, No answer. Just the hiss and pop of interference. I stare at the blinking cursor on my console, unsure whether to log it as a prank or something more. The system wants clean boxes ticked, domestic disturbance, burglary, suspicious activity. But where do you file a call from yourself? I was still thinking about it when the line went dead. I didn't want to admit it, but my hand was shaking a little as I wrote the report. I put it under unknown disturbance and kept the details vague. If I wrote what I really heard, I'd spend the rest of the week explaining it to supervisors who'd think I'd been up too long without a break. But it didn't end there. About 20 minutes later, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I'm not supposed to check personal messages on the job, but something about the timing made me look. It was a text from an unknown number. It just said, "Don't go home." The hairs on my arms rose. I slid the phone back into my pocket, forcing myself to focus on the next call, a routine noise complaint. An old woman swore her neighbors were hammering in the walls at 3 in the morning. The kind of thing you half listen to, nodding along while making a note for patrol to swing by. But in the middle of describing the noise, she stopped. It's gone," she whispered. Then more quietly, "Someone's breathing in my kitchen." Her voice shook in a way that made my skin crawl. I sent an officer, logged the call, hung up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow it was connected. By the time my shift ended at 6 a.m., the sun was just breaking over the horizon, throwing that pale, washed-out light through the windows. Normally, that's when I feel the tension lift. The world feels safer in daylight. But not that morning. I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at the road that led home. My own street, my own front door, the place I'd lived for 7 years. I didn't drive there. I told myself I was just being cautious. I was tired, maybe not thinking straight. But deep down, I was scared. I rented a room at a cheap motel off Route 9. The kind of place with flickering neon and paper-thin walls. I figured one night away would help me reset. It didn't. At 2:17 a.m., exactly the same time as the night before, the motel phone rang. When I picked it up, I didn't even speak. I just listened. Static. Then my voice. "You didn't go home." I gripped the receiver so hard my knuckles ached. "Who are you?" I said. "I told you," the voice whispered. "I'm you. I'm the real you. And I need you to come back before they find me." "What are you talking about? Who is they?" The voice didn't answer right away. There was a faint sound in the background, like something heavy dragging across a wooden floor. "They've been here for days," it finally said. "You stopped seeing them a long time ago, but they never left. They're under the floor. They're in the walls. They're wearing your skin." A click. The line went dead again. I sat there for a long time, the silence pressing in around me. My reflection in the dark motel window didn't look quite right. The shape of the jaw, the way the eyes caught the dim light. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel entirely certain I was the only one living in my own skin that I didn't want to pick up the next call. I sat there, staring at the blinking green light on my console like it was a snake ready to strike. The phone kept ringing, each tone louder in my head than the last, until it felt like the whole room was breathing with it. I told myself it wouldn't be him. Couldn't be him. But I knew better. I picked up the receiver. 911, what's your location and emergency? The voice overlapped mine perfectly, down to the way my throat catches on the first syllable. It wasn't just the same tone. It was the exact same rhythm, the same small pauses, the same scratch in the back of the throat. It was me. Only this time, he didn't waste time playing games. "I know you're hoping this is over," he said. I said, "But it isn't. Not yet." I kept my voice level professional. "Who is this?" "You know," he replied. No hesitation. "Do you remember the summer of 2008? The alley behind your grandmother's house?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't thought about that in years. Not because I'd forgotten, but because I'd buried it so deep that even I had trouble digging it up. I was 9 years old. There was a dead cat behind her house. Its body was twisted wrong, ribs showing through patchy fur. And I convinced myself I could fix it. I carried it in a cardboard box to the shed, thinking if I just, I don't know, kept it warm, fed it, it would wake up. But it didn't. It just got worse. And the smell. "Stop," I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. But he kept going. "You remember how you covered it with that red blanket? How you checked on it every day until your grandmother found it? You didn't cry. You just stared at her hands when she took it away. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Nobody knew about that. Nobody. I'm not your enemy, he said softly. I'm you. The real you. I hung up. I didn't slam the phone down like in movies. I just set it down gently, like I didn't want to wake something up. My palms were wet. I could feel my heartbeat in my teeth. I turned to Tyler, the guy at the next desk. You get any weird calls tonight? I asked. He shrugged without looking up from his monitor. Define weird. Like someone pretending to be you, saying stuff they shouldn't know. He gave me this slow, confused frown. No. You good, man? I didn't answer. The second call came less than an hour later. Same line. Same blinking green light. I picked it up before it could ring twice. 911, what's? You didn't tell him, he said. The same voice. My voice. I'm not doing this again, I said. You want to report a crime, do it. Otherwise, I'm hanging up. Don't you want to know what I'll say next? He asked. It's about the blue folder under your bed. I froze. That's not yours, is it? He continued. Not really. That's why you keep it buried under old blankets. You've read the pages so many times you could recite them. Her letters. Her handwriting. You still remember the way she made her R too big, the way the ink bled at the corners when she pressed too hard. I gripped the receiver so hard my fingers hurt. He was talking about my mom. The folder was the only thing I had left after she left. Letters she'd written to me when she was still in the house. I never told anyone I still had them. Not even my dad. What do you want from me? I asked quietly. To remind you. Of what? That you're not him. The line went dead. No click. No beep. Just gone. After that, I started dreading every call. Even the normal ones. The drunk guy asking for a taxi, the false alarms, the accidental dials from pocketed phones. I listened for it. The rhythm of my own voice bleeding through the static. And it came. Every night. By the fourth call, I'd stopped trying to hide the fact that it scared me. He didn't start with small talk this time. No lead up. Do you remember the window in your room on Lincoln Street? Yes, I said because I did. How many times did you unlock it after dark? I felt my jaw clench. I don't know. You do, he said. 3. The first time was to hear her footsteps outside. The second time was to see if she'd look up. The third time, he trailed off. The third time was when she was already inside. I shook my head. That never happened. You sure? That night, I couldn't stop picturing it. That house. That room. That window. I remembered the way the moonlight stretched across the floor. The way the night air felt colder near the glass. The way I used to press my face to the screen and listen. But I didn't remember her being inside. The fifth call came on my night off. My phone at home rang. Not the landline. My cell. I didn't recognize the number. When I picked up, the first thing I heard was breathing. Then, you're starting to remember, aren't you? I looked out my window without meaning to. The street outside was empty. This isn't just about memory, he said. It's about choice. You can keep being him, or you can come back. Come back from where? I asked. Silence. Then a whisper. You already know. After that, I stopped sleeping right. Even when the calls didn't come, I dreamed them. My voice echoing in empty rooms, telling me things I didn't want to remember, things I thought I made up as a kid, but they didn't feel made up anymore. The last call of the week came at 3:12 a.m. I was alone in the dispatch room. Tyler had gone out for a smoke. The phone rang once. I answered. You're making this harder than it has to be, he said. I'm not playing your game. I told him. You already are. Something about the way he said it. Not smug, not threatening, just certain, made my chest feel tight. You think you're real because you wake up here, because you have his desk, his name, his memories. But I have the rest. The rest of what? He didn't answer right away. I could hear faint noise on his end. Static, then something softer. A voice. My voice. It was repeating my name. Over and over. Like a chant. Like a warning. Then he spoke again, and his tone was different now. Lower. There's 2 versions of you. Only one survives. The line clicked dead. I sat there for a long time after that, the dialed tone humming in my ear, wondering if I'd imagined it. But deep down, I knew I hadn't, because I could still hear him, faint, but there, whispering my own name from somewhere I couldn't place. And the worst part? It didn't sound like it was coming from the phone anymore, that I didn't sleep the night after the second call. Not really. I just laid there, eyes open in the dark, trying to hear if the phone would ring again. It never did. Not until my next shift. The station smelled different when I walked in. Not bad, just off. Like when you walk into a house that's identical to yours, but belongs to someone else. Everything's the same, but your brain knows. The air is heavier. The quiet feels planned. I sat down at my desk, put on my headset, and stared at the monitors. The faint hum of electronics filled the room. That white noise that's normally so comforting. Today it sounded like breathing. Slow, steady. I told myself I was fine. It was just a voice on a line, maybe a prank. It couldn't hurt me. Then the line lit up. 911. What's your emergency? There was no delay this time. No static. Just my voice. Hi, it said. I'm almost there. I froze. Who is this? You know who I am. That smile was in the tone again. My own smile. I told you before. I'm the real one. I tried to think of something clever to say, something to trip him up, but my throat felt like it had shrunk. What do you mean? You're almost here. I'm on my way to the dispatch center, he said. The words came so casually, like we'd been planning a lunch. I have to take my place. My stomach dropped. Take your place. My place, he said. Where I belong. You've been doing well. Keeping my seat warm. But you know that's not really your job. My hand hovered over the button to flag a supervisor, but I didn't press it. I didn't want to explain this. I didn't want anyone to hear the voice and think I'd lost my mind. Listen, I said, keeping my tone professional. This is a recorded line. Any threats? Threats? He interrupted. Oh no, you're misunderstanding me. I'm not here to hurt you. The pause was longer this time. Not in the way you think. I heard faint noise in the background on his end. Footsteps. A door swinging shut. An echo like a hallway. You hear that? He asked. That's the sound of me getting closer. I knew the sound. It was the back stairwell at the station. The one just outside the break room. I tore off my headset and spun in my chair, staring at the door to the hall. It was closed. Silent. When I put the headset back on, the line was dead. For the next hour, I jumped at every little noise. The hum of the vending machine. The elevator doors. The shift supervisor's chair creaking. Nobody came in looking like me. Nobody even came close. I convinced myself it was just another trick. A recording. Someone who'd studied the building's sounds. But then, about 20 minutes before my shift ended, the line lit up again. 911, what's your... Don't call security, my voice said. I'm not there yet. Why are you doing this? I asked, trying to keep the fear out of my tone. What do you want? I told you. My life back. You don't have a life here. You're not me. That's funny, he said, because when I think back, everything I remember is mine. He started listing them. Small things. Personal things. Things I'd never told anyone at the station. The time I hid in my closet for an entire afternoon because I thought someone was in the house. The sound my mother's voice made when she was about to cry, but didn't want me to notice. The day I decided I wanted this job. Not because it paid well, but because I wanted to feel useful without being seen. Those aren't yours, I said. But my voice cracked halfway through. He didn't stop. He kept going, describing the scar on my knee from falling on gravel at age 7. The smell of my dad's cigarettes in the car on cold mornings. The exact sound my apartment's front door makes when a lock sticks. Stop, I said. You can't stop me, he replied. I'm already here. You're just an early version. When my shift finally ended, I walked home. I didn't want to drive. I didn't trust myself to focus. The whole way, I felt like someone was keeping pace behind me. Not close enough to hear footsteps, just close enough for me to know they were there. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, the street was empty. When I got home, I locked the door. Twice. I sat on the couch and tried to watch TV, but I kept catching my reflection in the dark screen when it was between scenes. For a split second each time, it looked like my reflection was smiling when I wasn't. I almost didn't go in for my next shift, but I told myself this was my job, my paycheck, my identity. If I let some voice scare me away, I'd lose more than my sleep. The first 2 hours passed quietly. No strange calls. No breathing on the line. Then, at 3:42 a.m., the phone rang. I answered. Hey, my voice said, I'm outside. This time, there was no pretending it was a recording. I could hear cars in the background. I could hear the faint buzz of the street lamp just outside our building. I could even hear the hollow clang of the metal bench where I sometimes sat to eat lunch. "Why are you doing this?" I asked again. It was the only question that mattered. "Because you're not supposed to be here," he said. "I was supposed to be here. You took my place before I could arrive." "That doesn't make any sense." "It will," he said, "in about 6 minutes." And then he hung up. I didn't move for a full 30 seconds. My mind was screaming to run to the door, to lock everything, to call someone. But some deeper part of me, some frozen, terrified part, wanted to know if he was real. At exactly 6 minutes later, the front doors of the dispatch center clicked open. I heard them from my desk. Someone had a key. The air shifted. The hum of the building's electronics seemed to dim, like the whole place was holding its breath. I stood up slowly, and then I saw him. Me. It wasn't like looking into a mirror. Mirrors are flat. Safe. This was solid. He walked in like he belonged. Like he knew the exact weight of my footsteps, the exact rhythm of my breathing. Same hair. Same jacket. Same faint scar above the eyebrow. He smiled at me, and it was my smile. "Finally," he said. "I hate waiting." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. "I'll make this easy for you," he continued. "Go home. Rest. I'll handle everything from here." My throat was dry. "I'm not leaving." His smile widened just enough to look wrong. "You will." I blinked, just for a second, and he was gone. No sound of footsteps. No door closing. Just a faint click of my headset reconnecting to the line. When I picked it up, his voice was there. My voice. "Not yet," he said, "but soon." And then the line went dead. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Not the kind you brew fresh. This was stale, burnt, sitting too long on the hot plate coffee. The kind that tastes like pennies. It took me a second to realize I was lying down. Not in my bed, but on the break room couch at the dispatch center. The fluorescent light above me hummed. It wasn't the usual steady hum. It had a faint warble in it, like a dying insect trapped in a jar. Every time it flickered, it made the room feel smaller. My mouth was dry. My head felt heavy, like I'd been asleep for days, but my body hadn't rested at all. The clock on the wall said 7:04 a.m. Shift change. I sat up slowly, my neck aching. I tried to remember how I got here. The last thing I could recall was the phone call, that voice saying it was on its way, saying it was coming to take my place. Then nothing. No memory. Just a gap, like someone had cut a section of film from the reel. The break room door creaked open and I flinched. It was Diane, morning shift supervisor. She looked startled when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I blinked at her. "I worked last night." Her eyebrows drew together. She stepped into the room, holding a clipboard to her chest. "No, you didn't." "Yes, I did," I said, standing up. My voice cracked. "I was here all night. Ask anyone." You weren't on the schedule." The way she said it made my stomach drop. "I covered for Mark," I insisted. "He had a family emergency. I took the shift. I was here. You can check the logs." She just stood there for a moment, studying me. Her face softened slightly, but not with understanding, with caution. Like I was fragile. "Come with me," she said. I followed her out to the dispatch floor. Morning light bled through the blinds, pale and thin, making the rows of monitors look colder. The room felt wrong, like it had been cleaned too thoroughly, like every sign of last night had been scrubbed away. Diane went straight to the main terminal, typing quickly. The logs loaded, line after line. She scrolled to last night. I leaned in. Nothing. No calls under my name. No login. No headset ID assigned to me. I stared at the screen. "That's impossible," I whispered. She clicked again, this time bringing up the audio archive. I waited for the familiar file list to appear. Every call recorded, time-stamped. Instead, there was a single entry for the entire night. No activity logged. "Maybe there's a system error," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We had calls, I swear." "You don't understand, Her gaze didn't waver. "The system doesn't just lose a whole night. Especially not with a dispatcher on duty." I opened my mouth, then shut it. The voice on the line last night. The way it had repeated things only I should know. The way it had laughed when I asked where it was. It said it was coming here. It said it was going to take my place. I turned toward my workstation, my desk, my chair, the headset that should have still been sitting there from when It wasn't my headset. The one on the hook was an older model, one we'd phased out months ago. My name tag wasn't on the desk. The chair had been pushed in, perfectly aligned. Not like how I left it. I reached into my pocket for my ID badge. It wasn't there. Diane was still watching me. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded automatically, even though my heart was thudding in my chest. "Yeah, just probably need more sleep." But my hands were shaking. She told me I could go home. She said she'd look into it and call me later. But there was something in her tone, like she wasn't planning to call at all. I stepped outside into the morning air. It felt wrong, too bright, too sharp after the dim, heavy hours I'd been trapped in. My car was parked where I'd left it, but when I opened the door, something was different. The driver's seat was pushed back. I never drive with it like that. I got in, adjusting it forward, telling myself I'd just forgotten. The whole drive home, I couldn't stop glancing in the rearview mirror. I don't even know what I was expecting, maybe to see someone sitting there. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw movement in my front window. I froze. It was just a shadow crossing the living room. But I live alone. I sat there for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Then I grabbed my keys and went inside. The house was empty. At least, it looked empty. The coffee table was clean. Too clean, like someone had wiped it down. My blanket on the couch was folded neatly, not draped like I'd left it. The framed photo on the shelf, the one of me and my sister when we were kids, was turned face down. I picked it up. The glass was warm. I checked every room, every closet, even under the bed. Nothing. When I finally sat down, I noticed the light blinking on my answering machine. One new message. I pressed play. There was silence for a few seconds. Then, "You left your seat too early." It was my voice. Not similar. Not close. My exact voice. I stood there, listening, barely breathing. "I told you I was coming. And now I'm here. You should rest now. How about the next shift?" The message ended. I stared at the machine, my pulse pounding in my ears. I played it again, hoping I'd misheard something. Same words. Same tone. My voice. I should have called someone. I should have driven straight back to the dispatch center, demanded answers, shown them the message. Instead, I erased it. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me knew they wouldn't believe me. The logs already said I wasn't there. The recordings were gone. And if whoever, whatever, had replaced me was sitting in my chair right now, wearing my headset, answering calls in my voice, then maybe officially I really hadn't been there last night. And maybe I wouldn't be there again, that I've worked rural dispatch for 3 years. You learn quick that out here, nothing's fast. Not the calls, not the help, and not the way bad things happen. It's all slow and stretched out, like the land itself. That night, the board was quiet. The storm had knocked out power in a good chunk of the county. People call in for everything when the lights go out. Trees down, drunk drivers, raccoons in kitchens. I was waiting for one of those calls. Instead, the line lit up. I put my headset on. "County Dispatch, what's your emergency?" Static. Then a voice so sharp and panicked it cut through the hiss. "They're here," he said. "Sir, who's there?" "I don't know, shadows. They're moving through my property. No lights. I can't see them, but I know they're there." I glanced at the power outage map. His address, County Line Road, was deep in the blackout zone. "All right, sir, I need you to stay calm. Are you inside your home?" "Yes." I locked the doors. "But they're still moving." His voice cracked, like he was trying not to scream. "It's not people. It's not," he stopped. The silence pressed into my ears. "Sir, can you describe them?" I could hear his breath, fast and shallow. "They're blacker than the dark. You understand? No shape. Just the dark moving where it shouldn't." My skin prickled. I'd heard strange descriptions before. Coyotes mistaken for prowlers. Tree shadows mistaken for figures. This was different. "Are you armed?" I asked. "Yes, but I don't think it'll matter." A faint sound came over the line. A slow, dragging scrape, like something heavy was being pulled over wood. He whispered, "They're on the porch." "Sir, stay on the line with me. Help is on the way." I typed his address into the system, but the GPS pin flickered like it couldn't lock in. That happens sometimes with rural calls, but not often enough to ignore. "I can't see them," he said, voice shaking, "but I can feel where they are." Another sound, a long, hollow thump. Not a knock. Something heavier. "Sir, are you near a window?" Yes, but I don't want to look. I need you to check, just for a second. Tell me if you see anyone. He didn't answer right away. I could hear the faint creak of him moving across the floor. Then silence. Sir, they're looking back at me, he said, almost like a child confessing something terrible. My stomach tightened. You mean you see eyes? No. I mean, the dark is looking back. I didn't know what to say. And then, thump, right against the phone speaker. The line hissed. Sir, I need you to move to an interior room. Stay away from windows. I can't, he said. If I move, they move. If I stay here, they stay there. Another voice came through the static. At least, I think it was a voice. Too faint to catch words. Is someone else in the house with you? No. The sound came again, closer now, but it wasn't coming from his end. It was bleeding into my headset, like the call itself was carrying something. I waved over to my partner, Harris, and mouthed, Trace this now. Harris frowned at the screen. It's not giving me anything. I turned back to the call. Sir, can you hear me? They're gone, he said. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Okay, that's good. Stay on the line. No, he cut in. They're gone from the porch. I don't know where they are now. A faint creak sounded in the background. Floorboards. Inside. My mouth went dry. Sir, are you alone in the house? Yes. Then get to a safe room right now. Do not hang up. I could hear his footsteps as he moved fast, then a door shutting. The sound of something heavy scraping, maybe a dresser being pushed in front of it. His breathing filled my ear. I kept my voice steady, even though my hand was sweating. You're doing fine. Officers are on the way. No, they're not. Sir, I heard you. The call's not going anywhere. They don't want it to. Something in his voice made me cold all over. He wasn't guessing. He knew. Sir, how do you know that? Because I've been here before. The line hummed. My computer screen blinked. The call Idaho reset. Harris looked at me, eyebrows raised. Been where before? I asked. This night. This blackout. This call. I remember saying these words. I swallowed. You mean like déjà vu? No, he sounded certain. I mean, this already happened. Exactly like this. And it didn't end well. His breathing got faster. Then the sound cut out. Not the line, just him. I could hear the hum of the room, the faint digital hiss, but no breath, no voice. Sir, can you respond? A slow, deliberate knock came through the headset. Not from far away, like it was right beside the phone. Then his voice, but lower. Too late. I sat there frozen, my hand tight around the mic. The line clicked dead. Harris spun his monitor toward me. Address came through. Finally, units 2 minutes out. We patched through to Deputy Mayfield, who was already rolling up county line. He didn't sound nervous. Not yet. 3 minutes later, his voice cracked over the radio. Dispatch, there's nothing here. House is dark. Truck in the driveway, but no sign of anyone. Doors wide open. I told him the caller's name, the details. Mayfield came back, voice tighter. I've been in every room. No one's here. But he paused. It's cold inside. Real cold. I didn't like the way he said it. You need backup? I asked. No, he said quickly. Just gonna clear out and lock up. Place feels wrong. The channel went quiet after that. I stared at the call log. The recording should have been there, time-stamped and stored. Instead, there was nothing. No record of the call. Just the address, entered manually by me. When I told Harris, he shook his head. System's been glitching all night. Power's probably messing with the servers. But I knew it wasn't that. Because an hour later, the line lit up again. Same number. Same man. Same first words. They're here. I had just finished typing up the report from the county line call when the phone rang again. Same night. Same blackout. The clock on the dispatch wall read 1:23 a.m. The whole building felt too still, like even the air outside had stopped moving. I'd been in the chair for hours, my headset pressing into the side of my skull, the soft hum of the servers sounding louder than usual. I didn't want to pick up. My fingers hovered for a second too long, but training took over. 911, what's your emergency? For a second, all I heard was breathing. Slow, steady, but wrong. Not the quick panic breathing you get when someone's scared. This was careful, like whoever was on the other end didn't want to wake something up. Then a voice, low and shaking. They're here. Who's there, sir? I asked, forcing my voice to stay even. The man swallowed hard before speaking again. I'm in my kitchen. I could see my front door from here. There's someone just standing there. I turned to my map screen, pulling up his location as fast as I could. Okay, what's your address? He gave it. Rural route, way out past the dead zone I just logged. The little pin on my map landed in the middle of a black stretch where I already knew the power grid was down. No streetlights, no porch lights, nothing. Can you describe them? I asked. He hesitated. Not really. No face. Just teeth. I froze. Teeth. Yeah, white. Like they're smiling, but there's no face there. Just teeth. His voice cracked on the last word. They're not moving. Just standing at my door, grinning. I swallowed. Sir, is your door locked? Yes. Are they trying to get in? No, he whispered. They're just waiting. His voice dropped lower, like he was talking more to himself than to me. I turned the flashlight on for a second, just to, check. They didn't move. But the teeth. He cut off, sucking a breath. The teeth were still there, even after I turned the light off. I sat back in my chair. What do you mean? I mean, it's pitch black outside. No lights anywhere. I can't see my own driveway, but I can see their teeth. Clear as day, like they're shining on their own. I wrote that down without realizing. Self-illuminating teeth. It sounded insane, but something about the way he said it. Sir, are you alone in the house? Yes. He didn't sound so sure, though. I could hear something faint on his end. Not footsteps. More like a soft creak, the sound a house makes when it's settling. Only it was too regular. One creak, then another, a few seconds apart. Are you armed? I asked. No. I don't think a gun's going to help with whatever that is. He said it like he'd already given up on the idea of this being human. I kept my tone firm. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line with me. All right. Silence. Sir, he whispered, it's knocking. My stomach tightened. The figure at your door? Yeah. It's slow. One knock, then nothing, then another knock. His breath hitched, but their hand isn't moving. I gripped the pen so hard my fingers hurt. What do you mean? I can see them. They're still standing there. Still grinning. But something's knocking, like from inside the door. The knock came through the line, a dull, heavy thud that rattled the speaker in my headset. It was slow, too slow to be someone impatient. I had the urge to take the headset off, but I forced myself to keep listening. Sir, move away from the door, I said quickly. Go to a room you can lock. I'm not. I can't. The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately, but it rang once, twice, then stopped. No voicemail, no pickup. The officers I sent out there radioed back 30 minutes later. No one answered the door. The house was locked, the lights were off, and the patrol car spotlight swept over nothing but a front porch covered in mud and dead leaves. No footprints. No signs of a struggle. Just empty. I asked if they tried the back door. They said there wasn't one. I didn't tell them what the man had said about the teeth. About the knocking. I just closed the call report, filed it as possible prank, and tried to convince myself that's all it was. But every time I closed my eyes that night, all I could see were those teeth, floating in the dark, smiling at me. IT started with static. Not the softest you hear when a radio isn't tuned right, but something sharper. Aggressive, like the sound was chewing at the speakers. We just sent 2 units out to County Line Road, Baker, 12, and Adams, 7. Both veteran deputies. Both calm under pressure. The call was simple on paper. Check on an elderly woman who said something was standing in her yard, smiling for the past 2 hours. No power in the area, no streetlights, just whatever her porch bulb could give. The radios worked fine when they left the lot. Crystal clear check-ins. Routine stuff. But the moment they passed mile marker 17, the sound came in. A high-pitched crack, then nothing but bursts of garbled noise. I could still hear voices in it, tiny fragments, but they were chopped apart, buried under the static like someone was holding them underwater. At first, I thought it was just interference. County Line Road cuts through a stretch of farmland and hills, and signal can be patchy. But this wasn't patchy. This was intentional. We tried them on all channels. My partner, Denise, leaned over her mic, her voice steady but tighter than usual. Baker, 12, Adam, 7, confirm you're receiving. Only more static came back, but in one burst. I swear I heard it. Someone whispering. It wasn't either of their voices. It was low, almost conversational, but it bled through the channel like it had been sitting there the whole time, waiting for a break in the noise. We all heard it. I looked at Denise. She didn't look back, just kept repeating the call, her finger locked on the transmit. After 5 minutes, dispatch protocol says we escalate. That means alerting neighboring departments, sending additional units, creating a safety net. But the power outage had already left us blind. No traffic cams, no street feeds, no phone lines in certain pockets. County Line was in one of those pockets. We finally got a blip from Adam 7. His voice cut in halfway through a sentence, distorted and shaking. Don't think it's... Static swallowed the rest. Denise sat up straighter, ready to key in, but then Baker 12's voice came through, fast and panicked. Turn off your lights. Then silence. No context. No location. Just that. Every hair on my arms stood up, because I knew Baker 12. The guy didn't rattle easy. He once walked into a meth house bust wearing nothing but his uniform vest and a grin. But this was fear I could feel. Denise looked at me, her eyes wide, then back at her console. Baker, 12, repeat. Did you say turn off your lights? Nothing. I glanced at the wall clock. 2:48 a.m. The seconds seemed to drag. The whole room felt heavier, like the air itself didn't want to move. Another burst of static. This time, there was breathing. Loud, close to the mic. And under it, a faint, wet clicking sound. It didn't sound like radio interference. It sounded like it was coming from inside someone's mouth. I pulled my headset slightly off one ear. My chest felt tight. Then, clear as day, Adam 7's voice. It's walking past the cruiser. His tone was flat, like he was forcing each word out. Denise's hand trembled as she pressed her mic. Visual confirmation? Adam 7, do you have visual? Don't look at it. And then his channel cut so abruptly it popped in my ears. The rest of the room went dead silent. Even the night shift guys who usually cracked jokes stayed frozen, eyes fixed on the monitors like something might crawl out of them. We tried the backup frequency, the emergency cell lines. Nothing. It was like County Line Road had been erased from the grid. After 10 minutes, the shift supervisor ordered us to get another unit rolling. But the nearest available car was 20 minutes out, and even they were nervous about driving into a blackout zone with comms dead. The static came again, sharp enough to make me wince. And then, this time, both voices at once. They weren't talking to us. They were pleading. We're not inside anymore. We're not inside anymore. Please. A loud crack cut them off. Something heavy hit metal. Then a deep, guttural growl poured through the channel. It was so low my console vibrated. I don't know how to explain it except it didn't sound human, but it didn't sound like an animal either. It was wrong, like it had too many layers. And then, underneath it, a faint voice. Female, not any of the officers. She was laughing. The sound fizzled out like someone had yanked the cord. We kept trying. For 30 straight minutes, we rotated through every possible way of reaching them. Denise's voice was hoarse. My palms were sweating so badly the mic kept slipping in my hand. The supervisor finally told us to stop, to stand by. I hated that. Standing by means waiting for bad news. The replacement unit finally rolled in at 3:37 a.m. They reached the elderly woman's house. Said the porch light was smashed, door wide open. The house was empty. No signs of Baker, 12, or Adam, 7. No cruiser. No footprints except one set, leading away from the house toward the fields. The weird part? They said the tracks didn't sink into the mud. It had rained earlier that night, but these prints looked like they were laid on top of the water. Like the ground didn't matter. When I got off shift that morning, I sat in my car in the parking lot for a good 15 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. We never got the radios back. Not the units, not the recordings. Everything from County Line went blank in the logs. If you pull the call history for that night, it jumps from 2:41 a.m. to 3:37 a.m. like nothing happened in between. But I remember every second, and I still hear that static sometimes. Even when the radio's off, the power came back at 4:17 a.m. I remember the time because I had been staring at the red LED clock on my desk for the past 3 hours, its numbers dead and blank. When the power surged, The lights overhead flickered once, humming back to life, and every device in the room beeped at a slightly different pitch. Someone in the back of the room let out a long breath. I think we all have been holding ours, waiting for, I don't know, something worse. For a few seconds, I thought maybe the nightmare was over. County Line Road was just another patch of asphalt again. Whatever had swallowed our radios, whatever had taken the power, had gone quiet. But then Dispatch Supervisor Lane said it. Pull the body cam footage. I knew why she said it. Protocol. Whenever we lose officer contact, the cameras back at the station automatically archive the last recorded files. Once power's restored, they're uploaded. Usually, we watch for threats, suspects, or mistakes. This time, no one wanted to watch. We started with Officer Miller. The screen glowed blue as the file loaded. Grainy video, that familiar fisheye curve from the lens. He was walking along the ditch line, breathing hard. You could see the beam from his flashlight cutting through the darkness, hitting brush, empty road, and fog. Lots of fog. Miller, the recording of his voice, said, "I can't see the end of the road. Do we pass the turnoff?" The mic picked up the sound of wind, except it wasn't windy that night. It wasn't wind at all. It was a slow, steady inhale. Then the video glitched. One frame, he's on the road. The next, he's in the middle of a cornfield. Same body position, same stride, but the surroundings just changed. Stalks brushing against the lens. His flashlight beam shaking across rows. No sound now except the crunch of his boots. I felt a chill crawl up my arms. Miller didn't react like he'd been moved. He just kept walking like it had been the same road all along. Then he stopped. His light caught something between the stalks. At first, I thought it was a person, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too thin. And where a face should have been, there was only black, except for the teeth. Not a smile. Not bared in anger. Just visible. No lips, no skin. Just a set of teeth floating there, catching the flashlight. The video cut to static. We all sat there a moment, the hum of the monitors loud in the silence. Lane didn't say anything. She just clicked on the next file. Officer Ruiz. His footage began in the patrol car, dash lights faint on his face. He was talking into his radio, saying he'd lost Miller's taillights. Then, a faint whisper over the speaker, Miller's voice except wrong. Too close to the mic, too breathy. Keep driving. Ruiz glanced at the camera, confusion in his eyes. Say again. Keep driving. The voice repeated, slower this time. And he did. The road ahead disappeared into darkness. No streetlights, no reflectors. Just his headlights and that thick, pale fog. Then, like someone had flipped a switch, the fog parted, and there was a house. Middle of nowhere. No driveway. Just sitting right on the edge of the asphalt. Ruiz slowed the car. The front door was open. Something moved inside. Quick, too quick to track. He stepped out, the camera bouncing as he approached. His hand hovered near his weapon, breathing heavy. He shined his light inside the doorway. There was no furniture, just walls covered in photographs. All of them black and white. All of them showing people standing in front of houses, but the people had no faces. The footage started to distort. Colors drained until everything looked washed in pale gray. Ruiz's voice became distant, like it was echoing down a tunnel. Then, behind him, in the glow of his cruiser's headlights, someone stood in the road. Still, watching. Teeth. The video glitched and froze on a single frame of that figure before it cut to static. My throat felt tight. I didn't want to see more, but Lane cued the next file. This one was Officer Jacobs. Jacobs had been assigned to search the north stretch of County Line, away from the others. His footage was strange from the start. No audio at all, just the image of him walking along the edge of the woods. The darkness behind the trees seemed heavier than it should. Every time his flashlight passed over them, the shadows shifted, but not like leaves moving. It was more like they were pulling back, retreating from the light. Then the flashlight flickered out. Jacobs didn't swear, didn't shake it. He just stood there, breathing hard. And then, faintly, behind him in the pitch black, a pale hand reached out from between two trees. Long fingers curling in the air. Another hand appeared. Then another. And another. Too many. They started crawling out. Not people, not exactly. Shapes with two long limbs, heads hanging low. Jacobs didn't run, didn't even turn, just kept looking forward like he couldn't see them at all. The last frame before static was one of those shapes inches from the lens, head tilting sideways like it was trying to see who was behind the camera. I pushed my chair back from the console. My hands felt numb. But Lane wasn't done. There was one more file. It didn't have a name, just a timestamp from 3:07 a.m. The footage opened on the same stretch of County Line Road I'd seen in Miller's and Ruiz's feeds. Only, it wasn't either of them. This camera was lower to the ground, the angle strange. The road was empty, silent. Then, slowly, something stepped into frame. It was wearing a police uniform. But the head wasn't right. It was too small, tilted at an unnatural angle. The teeth were there, glinting in the dark. It walked toward the camera. Closer, closer. The audio kicked in, static so loud it hurt my ears. Underneath it, faintly, I could hear someone breathing. Then, it spoke. Not in Miller's voice. Not Ruiz's. Not Jacob's. My voice. Don't turn it off. The feed cut to black. Nobody in the room moved. Lane slowly reached over and closed the window on the monitor. That's enough, she said, her voice tight. We didn't log the footage. We didn't send it up the chain. I don't even know if the system kept it. Sometimes things disappear from the archive without anyone touching them. The officers never came back. Their cruisers were found the next day, engines cold, doors locked. And sometimes, late at night, when the radios are quiet and the lights in the station hum just a little too loud, I hear static in my headset. And underneath it, breathing.it was a little after 1 in the morning when the call came in. I'd been halfway through my second cup of stale coffee, just letting the bitter taste settle on my tongue, when the phone lit up. 911, what's your emergency? At first, there was nothing, just breathing. Not fast, not panic, but shaky, like someone who's been standing out in the cold too long. I leaned forward in my chair. Hello? Can you hear me? A woman's voice finally came through, so faint I almost thought it was feedback. I don't know if I should be calling. Her words were slow, careful. I'd heard that tone before, the sound of someone trying not to make a noise, like they think something nearby might hear them. Ma'am, if you feel unsafe, you did the right thing. Can you tell me what's going on? She hesitated, and for a second, I thought the line had dropped. Then, there's someone in my backyard. That made me sit up. All right, where are you right now? She gave me an address, small house on the edge of town, not far from the old industrial road that everyone avoided after dark. I started logging it in, signaling to dispatch to send a unit. Can you describe the person? Another pause. They're tall. That's all she said. I waited, expecting more, but she didn't go on. Okay, what else can you tell me? Are they moving? Her voice came out thinner this time. No, they're just standing there, looking at me. I felt my stomach shift. Through the window? Yes. I haven't moved the curtain. I can see the shape. They've been there for. She trailed off, and I heard a tiny sound in the background, the click of a wall clock. 20 minutes, maybe more. My screen showed the nearest patrol was still 7 minutes out. Do you know this person? Could be a neighbor. She whispered the answer so softly, I almost didn't catch it. No, they're too tall. Her voice cracked on the last word. I could tell she was gripping the phone close, like if she let it drift an inch away, she'd lose her nerve. Are they armed? Can you see their face? I asked. No. She swallowed. They're in the shadows, but I could tell they're looking right at my window. They haven't moved once, not even to blink. She was whispering like she thought the figure could hear her through the glass. I tried to keep her talking, but my mind kept circling back to the same detail. They've been standing still for 20 minutes. Most trespassers don't just stand there. They move. They check doors. They rattle windows. This person wasn't doing any of that. Where's the nearest light? Is your porch light on? No. The backyard's dark. Street lights burned out. I started to say something else when her voice cut in, low and trembling. They tilted their head. I could hear her breathing change, faster now. They just tilted their head to the side, slowly, like they were listening to me talk. I motioned for the other dispatcher to hurry the patrol along. Stay calm. Help is almost there. Can you get to a safe room, somewhere you can lock the door? I don't want to move. I think they'll know. The line went quiet except for her breathing. Then, Almost too quiet to hear, she said. They're smiling. Every hair on my arm stood up. Ma'am, how can you tell in the dark? I can see their teeth. I don't know why, but that's the part that got to me. Something about the way she said it. Not loud, not panicked, just flat. Like she couldn't believe it either. Through the headset, I thought I heard something faint, maybe wind, maybe not. It was rhythmic, almost like someone whispering too far from the mic. The woman's breathing slowed again. They're still smiling. They haven't stopped looking at me. I glanced at the GPS. The nearest unit was 3 streets over. I was about to tell her to stay hidden when she said something that made my stomach drop. They have something in their hand. I gripped the desk. What is it? She didn't answer right away. Then, I don't know. It's hanging down. It's long. It looks wet. I could feel my pulse in my ears. Help is seconds away. I want you to. The line went dead. I swore under my breath and tried to call her back. Nothing. No ring. Just a flat tone. A minute later, the patrol arrived. They did a sweep, front yard, backyard, side alley. No sign of anyone. The backyard was empty. The officer's report said the grass was damp, like someone had been standing there. But there were no footprints, not even in the softer soil by the garden bed. They found the woman inside, sitting on the floor by the window. She wasn't hurt, but she wouldn't speak to them, just stared past them toward the backyard, like she was still watching something. They asked her if she wanted to stay with family for the night. She shook her head, said she had to stay. When they asked why, she whispered, because he said he'd come back if I left. And that was it. The official report said, unfounded suspicious person. Case closed. But I couldn't stop thinking about her voice. How certain she was that it was still there. The thing that's been eating at me since that night? She said it had been there for 20 minutes. That's the time she saw it. How long had it been standing there before she even looked out the window? I didn't even have time to log the first call before her name lit up my screen again. Same number, same address, same soft, shaking voice. But she'd never hung up. The line had been open the whole time. I remember glancing at the timer on the console. 11 minutes, 46 seconds since she first called. And yet, the system was telling me this was a new call. That shouldn't happen. Not unless the connection had dropped. But I've been hearing her breathing, faint in my ear, the whole time. I swallowed, lifted the headset again. Ma'am, my voice sounded too loud in my own head. The breathing on the other end hitched. Then she spoke and my skin went cold. It's inside. I sat straighter. You said you saw someone in your backyard. Not someone. Her voice was almost a whisper. It's standing right here, over my bed. My stomach nodded. I looked toward the monitors, toward the silent maps and green blips showing active calls. I knew the officers were already en route from the first report. They couldn't be more than a few minutes out. Ma'am, stay on the line with me. Okay? Can you tell me what you're seeing? She didn't answer at first. Just that slow, uneven breathing. She faltered. It's not moving. I bit the inside of my cheek. Is it a man? Is he armed? It's taller, she said finally. Too tall. It's wrong. Her voice cracked on that last word. I pictured her curled up on her bed, phone clutched in both hands, eyes wide in the dark. And then she said something that made my chest tighten. I can't see its face. It's too close, but I can't see it. Something in her tone made me grip the desk a little harder. All right, listen to me. Keep your voice low. Don't make any sudden moves. The police are on their way. I can't move. Her voice wasn't scared in the normal way anymore. It was flat. Hello. Why not? I asked carefully. She took a shaky breath. Because if I move, it moves. For a moment, the line felt heavier, like the air between us was thick. I reached for my keyboard, pulling up the officer's GPS location. They were close, maybe 2 minutes. I just had to keep her talking. Okay, that's fine. You're doing great. Just keep your eyes on it if you can. Silence. Ma'am. She breathed in, sharp and sudden. The line crackled. Not the normal static from a bad connection. This was wet, warping, like the sound of something pulling apart. Then her voice came back, but it was quieter. It's looking at me now. That made my skin prickle. You said you couldn't see its face. I still can't, but it knows I'm looking. I kept my own breathing even, or tried to. Okay, the officers are almost there. Can you reach a light? Anything to illuminate the room? I think a pause. No. No, I don't want to see it in the light. Something about the way she said it made my throat dry. There was another stretch of silence, just the faint hiss of the line. Then another sound. It wasn't hers. It was low, irregular, almost like a recording of someone breathing, played backward, wet, pulling air where it didn't belong. My free hand hovered over the mute button, instinctively, though I didn't press it. "Ma'am," I said slowly, "do you have a pet? A large dog, maybe?" She didn't answer. The other sound, that strange breathing, grew closer to the mic. My headset felt suddenly too warm against my ear. Then I heard her whisper, not to me, but to herself. "Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me." Her words broke into a whimper. "Ma'am, the police are outside. Do not hang up. Do you hear me?" Her breathing was sharp now, fast. A sharp thump rattled through the line, followed by the sound of wood creaking, like weight shifting on the bed. I shot a look at the dispatcher beside me, mouthing to patch me into the officers' radios. They were at her door. I could hear their muffled voices calling out, the heavy knocks echoing in the distance of her phone speaker. She didn't respond to them. Instead, she whispered something I will never forget. "It's looking at you now." I froze. My eyes flicked instinctively to the room around me, the dim blue light from the monitors washing over the consoles. The officers forced the door. I heard boots on tile, voices calling clear, more footsteps, a door opening. Then chaos. "Dispatch, we got a female on the bed, conscious but unresponsive. Room's clear." Her phone clattered, like it had fallen from her hand. But here's the thing. Even with the officers in the room, the call didn't end. Her phone was still connected, and I could still hear something on the other end. That same wrong breathing. It was faint now, but it didn't stop, not until the line finally went dead. Not when she was taken out, not when they searched the whole house. When the report came back, the strangest part wasn't that they found no sign of forced entry. It wasn't even that her backyard was undisturbed, snow still smooth where she'd claimed it stood. It was that her phone's call log showed only one call that night. The first one out. I've taken a lot of strange calls in my time. Drunks who think they're dying because they cough too hard. Kids testing if 911 is real. People who say they hear things in their walls, see things in their mirrors. You learn to file things into categories. Real danger, possible danger, imagined danger. And then there are calls that don't fit anywhere. Calls you can't explain, even to yourself. It had been 3 days since her. The woman from the "Do you see her too?" call. The woman who, in the middle of her own panic, started describing the inside of my apartment. And yes, I've tried to rationalize it. She could have guessed. She could have seen me before. She could have stalked me online and found something I didn't remember posting. But no matter how much I try to force in a logic, there's still one part one can't explain. She described my apartment in the dark, like she was standing in it. That call started normal, or as normal as calls like hers get. It was almost 3 a.m. when the line lit up. I recognized the number before the system even finished pulling up the record. Same area code, same exchange. The hair on my arm stood up before I even answered. 911, what's your emergency? The silence on the other end was short, but heavy, like whoever was there was deciding whether or not to speak. And then, hi, I knew the voice. Same soft, breathy tone, that shakiness that made you lean in just to make sure you caught every word. But this time, it wasn't the panic in her voice that got me. It was the calm. "Is this the same dispatcher from before?" she asked. I hesitated. "Ma'am, if this is about your previous incident, I can. I like your lamp." I froze. I have a small table lamp in my living room. Matte black base. Cream shade. It's not special. It's not even visible from the street unless you walk right up to my window. "Excuse me," I said. "It's nice," she continued. "The warm light. I bet it makes you feel safe at night." I tried to keep my voice even. "Ma'am, where are you calling from?" She didn't answer that. Instead, she asked, "Do you leave it on all night?" The rational part of me went into overdrive. Coincidence. She's guessing. Half the world has a lamp. But then she said, "You forgot to dust it. On the top, by the curve. You can see the layer if the light hits it." I hadn't dusted it in weeks, and there's no way she could have seen that from outside. I sat forward, the headset digging into my temple. How do you know that? There is the faintest sound on the line, not static, not breathing. A low, soft hum, almost like she was thinking. You have a mug on your coffee table, she said. Blue. Cracked handle. You keep it even though it's broken. I looked over my shoulder. Through the doorway of my living room, I could see it, my chipped mug sitting exactly where I'd left it. Something was building in my chest. Not just fear, something worse. The feeling you get when you realize you're already too late. I kept my voice low, tight. Where are you? She finally gave a little laugh. It was quiet, but it didn't sound amused. It sounded curious. Do you want me to tell you? Ma'am. Or do you want me to keep going? And she did. Detail after detail. The exact pattern of the blanket folded over my couch. The way my blinds are always slightly uneven, one side lower than the other. The single shoe by the door, because I couldn't find its pair. She wasn't guessing. She knew. I switched the call to record only and signaled my supervisor. He moved toward the mapping system, typing the number in to trace the location. The signal pinged once, then again, and then nothing, like the call was coming from everywhere and nowhere. She was still talking. You don't close your bedroom door all the way when you sleep, she said. You leave it open just enough, like you're waiting for someone. I clenched my jaw. What do you want? Silence. And then, I think you already know. Her voice had changed. It wasn't trembling anymore. It was slower, lower, almost like she was letting something else speak through her. You shouldn't live alone, she said. I didn't answer. It's not good for you, she continued. You forget what's real. You start imagining things. Hearing footsteps when you're sure no one's there. Feeling the bed move when you're not dreaming. I was gripping the edge of my desk so hard my knuckles ached. She knew things I've never told anyone. The noises. The subtle movements at night. My supervisor mouthed, hang up. But I couldn't. Do you see her too? She asked suddenly. My throat went dry. Who? The line cracked. A burst of sharp static. And then, clear as day. The one standing behind you. Every hair on my body stood up. I turned in my chair, my heart hammering so loud I could barely hear. Nothing. Just the dim glow of my monitor reflecting off the far wall. While I looked back at the console, the call timer was still running. She hadn't hung up. You turned too fast, she whispered. She doesn't like that. I could feel it then. That sensation of being watched, but heavier. Like the air itself was pressing against me. Why are you doing this? I asked. She let out another soft laugh. Because you answered. I don't remember much after that. The call dropped. No click, no goodbye. Just silence, and then an empty line. When we pulled the audio later, the strangest thing wasn't her voice. It was mine. There were moments I didn't remember speaking, but the recording had me answering her. Repeating phrases I swear I never said. And once my voice sounded just like hers. That was the last time I worked the night shift alone. But even now, when the lamp is on and the blinds are closed, I still think about that question. Do you see her too? Because I'm starting to think the answer is yes, that I didn't want to watch it. God, I really didn't. But when the tech team called me into the security room that morning, I knew. I could see it on their faces, the pale, too long stare people get when they've already seen something they can't unsee. The lead tech, Mendez, didn't even speak at first. He just pointed at the monitor and said, "You're going to want to sit down." I didn't sit. The footage was from the night before. It started the same as every other file. Date stamp in the corner, a faint hum from the recording, that faint static of cheap building security cameras. Only this camera wasn't from anywhere in the city grid. It wasn't from the station either. It was my bedroom. I could tell instantly. The bedspread, a dull, faded navy I'd bought on clearance. The dent in the pillow on the right side, where I always slept. The sliver of crooked frame above the headboard, showing a blurry photo of my dad fishing. Even the clutter on the nightstand. An empty glass, my phone charger, a paperback I hadn't opened in months. There was no mistaking it. This was my room, and that made no sense because my bedroom didn't have a camera in it. Mendez kept his voice low. Watch it through. No skipping. The timestamp read 2:11 a.m., about an hour after I'd gone to bed. I could see myself in the frame, lying on my side, breathing slow, the faint rise and fall on my chest. Everything was still. Then, about 30 seconds in, the door eased open. It wasn't loud. No sudden movements. just the soft, slow arc of the door inching toward the wall. A figure stepped inside. At first, I thought the angle was playing tricks on me because the person didn't seem to walk so much as glide. Their head tilted slightly, as if they were trying to make out every detail of me in the dark. They moved to the far corner, near the foot of my bed, and they just stood there. No swaying, no shifting their weight, just standing completely still, watching me. I couldn't tell if they were male or female. The camera was black and white and grainy. All I could see was that they were tall, very tall. I felt my stomach twist. "This is a joke, right?" I asked. My voice didn't sound right. Too thin, too far away. Mendez shook his head once. "Keep watching." The figure didn't move for over a minute. I kept expecting some big action, lunging, reaching, attacking, but nothing happened. They just stared at me while I slept, like they were studying me. And then they turned their head toward the camera. Not all the way, just enough for me to see one half of their face in the shadow. I wish I could describe it in a way that made sense, but it didn't look like a face should look. Too long, too smooth, like the features were pressed in rather than built out. They held the stare for maybe 3 seconds before looking back at me. At 2:15, they stepped closer. Not fast, just 2, 3 slow steps until they were right at my bedside. From this angle, the camera caught them leaning forward slightly. Their head was tilted in a way that felt almost curious. I could see my own body, still sleeping peacefully, no awareness at all that someone was breathing inches from my face. I wanted to scream at the screen, to wake myself up. But of course, this was just footage. At 2:18, they straightened, turned, and walked back to the door. The frame caught one last glimpse as they slipped out into the hallway. The door closed behind them. The recording kept running, showing me alone in the bed until morning. I didn't move for a long time. Not until Mendez cleared his throat and said, "You should probably go home and check your locks." I couldn't even answer him. When I finally left the station, I drove straight to my building. The whole way there, I kept replaying the video in my head. That slow, deliberate way they'd entered. How still they'd been. That moment their head turned toward the camera, like they'd known exactly where it was. And the part one didn't want to admit to myself, the faint shape of their mouth curled just slightly at the corners. I think they were smiling. When I reached my apartment, I didn't go inside right away. I just stood in the hallway, staring at my own door. It looked normal. Same worn paint, same slightly crooked numbers. But the lock felt loose when I turned it. Inside, everything looked exactly the same as when I'd left. Nothing broken, nothing stolen. But the air felt wrong. Heavy. Clothes. I checked every corner, every closet, even under the bed. Nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the thought that maybe they were still here, not hiding, but waiting somewhere I couldn't see. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured the footage, the shadow in the corner, the slow approach, that face. By morning, I convinced myself it had to be some kind of mistake. Maybe someone from the building had access to my place. Maybe it was a sick prank. I went to the landlord. He swore he'd never given anyone a key. Said the building didn't even have cameras inside apartments. Privacy laws, you know. I didn't tell him I'd already seen the proof. Back at the station, I asked Mendez for the file. He told me it was gone. Gone how? I asked. Pulled from the system. Not by us. It's like it never existed. My stomach dropped. So you didn't make a copy? He shook his head. I told you, I don't even know where it came from in the first place. For the next week, I tried to carry on like nothing had happened. But every shift, I kept half expecting the phone to ring and hear that same voice again. And then one night it did. Hello. She didn't say my name this time. She just breathed into the line for a few seconds before whispering, "Do you remember last night?" I froze. My tongue felt thick in my mouth. "What are you talking about?" "I watched you," she said. Her tone was almost tender. "You sleep with your mouth open. Did you know that?" I hung up. I wanted to believe it was some sick mind game, that she couldn't really have been there. But when I got home and checked my bedroom, the door was unlocked. The glass of water on my nightstand was gone, and in its place was a folded piece of paper. For words written in neat, careful handwriting. Look through the glass. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room until dawn, holding the note like it was something alive. The next night, I taped black garbage bags over my windows. I shoved a chair under the doorknob. I left every light in the apartment on. But sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up on the couch to the faintest tapping sound. It was coming from the bedroom. The tapping was slow, deliberate, not like a branch or a pipe. I told myself not to go in, but my body didn't listen. When I reached the doorway, I saw it. The garbage bags over the window were gone, and in the glass, reflected faintly by the streetlight outside, someone was standing. Not outside, not in the room. In the reflection, they stood just behind my shoulder, close enough that I should have felt their breath. But when I turned, there was no one there. The reflection, though it didn't disappear, they just smiled at me through the glass that I've worked as a dispatcher for 6 years. And in that time, I've heard everything, screaming, crying, people whispering through their last breaths. But this was the first time I felt like the call itself was alive. It started at 2:52 a.m. Night shift was quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, either the heavy kind, the kind that makes you notice the hum of the lights overhead and the way the air feels stale in your mouth. I had just poured my third cup of coffee, still burning hot, and was scrolling through the CAD logs when my headset clicked. 911, what's your emergency? A man's voice came through, ragged, panicked. There's a fire. I'm at 19 Hillcrest. It's in the kitchen. I can't get it out. Please just send someone. His breathing was loud, uneven. I could hear the faint crackle of flames somewhere behind him. Sir, are you inside the house right now? Yes. My wife, she's upstairs. She's not waking up. Stay calm. I'm dispatching fire and EMS now. Is the smoke thick? Yes, I can't. His words cut off in a cough that made me wince. Hurry, please. I typed fast, getting the fire department en route. Sir, stay low to the ground. Try to reach your wife. Help is coming. Can you still hear me? Yes, he said, but softer, strained. The sound faded, his voice, the fire, everything, until the line went dead. That's not unusual. Calls drop. Sometimes people run out or their phone dies. Still, I sat there a moment longer, headset in place, listening to nothing. 15 minutes later, I was logging the incident when my line lit up again. Same line, same tone. 911, what's your emergency? The voice was identical. The panic, the ragged breath. There's a fire. I'm at 19 Hillcrest. It's in the kitchen. I can't get it out. Please just send someone. For a moment, I thought it was a recording. My fingers froze over the keyboard. Sir, are you inside the house right now? I asked, my voice slower this time. Yes. My wife, she's upstairs. She's not waking up. The same words. Same cough. Same frantic tone. Stay calm. I'm dispatching fire and EMS now. Is the smoke thick? Yes, I can't. Hurry, please. Even the way he said please was the same. Exactly the same. This time, I didn't type the call in. Fire and EMS were already on scene. I glanced over at the live status board. They'd arrived 5 minutes ago. The line dropped at the exact same point. I pulled my headset off and rubbed my temples. My first thought? Glitch. Maybe the system had somehow looped the recording of the original call. But the software doesn't work like that. We don't just accidentally replay calls live. I flagged it to the supervisor, but he just shrugged and said maybe it was a prank. People do that sometimes. They hear about an incident and try to mess with us. Except prank calls aren't perfect, word-for-word replicas. At 3:19 a.m., it happened again. 911, what's your emergency? There's a fire. I'm at 19 Hillcrest. I cut him off. Sir, are you aware you've called here before? There was a pause, long enough that I thought maybe I'd broken the script, whatever this was. Then, it's in the kitchen. I can't get it out. Please just send someone. Sir, the fire department is already there, I said. He coughed. Same sound. My wife, she's upstairs. Sir, listen to me. The line went dead. My hands were cold. It didn't feel like a prank anymore. It felt mechanical, like the man on the other end didn't even hear me. The firefighters reported back around 3:25. The kitchen had burned badly. They'd found one fatality upstairs, female, mid-40s. The husband was unaccounted for. That's when my stomach dropped, because in all 3 calls, I never once heard sirens in the background. If he was still in that house during the first call, he wouldn't have been making the second one 15 minutes later. And definitely not the third. I went to the recording logs. Pulled up all 3 calls side by side. They matched. Exactly. Every pause, every cough, every breath. Perfect duplicates. I should have stopped there. I should have logged it and gone home and forgotten about it. But around 3:44 a.m., the line lit up again. 911, what's your emergency? And there it was. There's a fire. I'm at 19 Hillcrest. No, I said, voice sharp. No, you're not. Who is this? The line hissed softly like the sound of static, but the voice kept going. It's in the kitchen. I can't get it out. You're dead, I said before I could stop myself. The fire department found your wife. They didn't find you. The cough came right on time. But this time, it was followed by something else. A sound I can't put into words. Like a laugh, but broken, wet, and muffled. The hair on my arms stood up. Then the line went dead. I didn't get another call that night. But I stayed at my desk, heart pounding, staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring again. Part of me was terrified. Part of me wanted to know what he'd say next. By the time my shift ended at 6 a.m., I felt like I'd been holding my breath for hours. The drive home was quiet. Too quiet. The streets empty. The sky that sickly pale just before dawn. I kept thinking about the man's voice, how no matter what I said, it just kept repeating the same thing, like my words didn't matter. Like I wasn't even there. But the laugh, that laugh, meant it wasn't just a loop. It meant he heard me, that I didn't notice it at first. The night shift had this way of blending everything together, calls, paperwork, coffee, repeat. My desk lamp had been buzzing all night, flickering a little, but I didn't think much of it. It was almost comforting, in a way, the sound filling in the empty spaces between the silence. After that first fire call, the one with the screaming and the popping in the background, I just sat there, waiting for the next. My headset was still warm against my ear. I remember glancing up at the wall clock. 3:07 a.m. I didn't think anything of it. It's just a timestamp, right? You log it, you move on. 15 minutes later, the exact same call came in. Same voice. Same words. Same scream. And when I say exact, I mean it down to the pauses, the breaths, the way the man's voice cracked on the same word. It wasn't possible. Even the background noise matched perfectly. You could have played them side by side and never told the difference. After it ended, I just sat there, staring at the blinking cursor on my screen. My hands felt cold on the keyboard. That's when I looked at the clock again. Still 3:07 a.m. I thought maybe I just misremembered. My mind was already tense, so maybe I'd looked at it wrong before. But then I checked the clock on my computer. 3:07 a.m. too. Both of them. I tapped the monitor like that would wake it up from whatever glitch it was having. No change. I even picked up my phone. 3:07. And it stayed there. The thing about being in a dispatch center at night is you're so used to time crawling. But this wasn't crawling. This was not moving. The air in the room felt different, thicker, heavier. I could hear my own breathing louder than I should have. I pressed my palms into my desk and told myself it was just an electrical glitch. Maybe the storm earlier had knocked something out. But the storm had been hours ago, and the power hadn't flickered once in here. I stood up and walked toward the wall clock. The second hand wasn't just frozen. It was tilted slightly, like it had been caught mid-step. Something about that made my stomach turn. When you've looked at clocks your whole life, you're used to seeing them move, even if it's just in your peripheral vision. Seeing one frozen felt wrong. Like catching someone mid-blink and realizing their eyes aren't going to open again. I reached up and tapped the glass. Nothing. The sound of my nail against it was too loud in the room. I went back to my desk. The screen still showed 3:07 in the corner. My phone, still 3:07. And I realized my phone battery hadn't dropped a single percent since that first call. I'd been scrolling before it came in. It was at 48%. Still was. That was when my headset crackled again. 911, what's your emergency? I said automatically. Static. Then, the fire call. Again, word for word. Even the same slight cough before he spoke. It felt like listening to an echo from a canyon you couldn't see the end of. I didn't even log it this time. I just sat there with the headset to my ear, listening, waiting for something, anything to change. But it didn't. When it ended, I slowly set the headset down, the way you'd put down a glass that you didn't want to spill. I checked the clock again. Still, 3:07. I don't know how long I sat there before it hit me. If the call kept repeating and the time wasn't moving, did that mean I was stuck? Not stuck like a computer freezes and you reboot. Stuck like something was holding me here. I stood up and walked to the break room. The vending machine lights were on, humming softly. The hum sounded too steady, like it had been looped. I walked past Coffee Pot. The drip light was glowing, but the coffee inside wasn't steaming. It was lukewarm when I touched the side. Everything in the room was still. Not dead, not powered down. Just paused. I looked out the window. The parking lot lights shone on wet pavement from the earlier rain. I expected to see at least one car passing on the road beyond, but there was nothing. Not even the faint red dots of distant taillights. The world outside looked like a photograph. I went back to my desk, sat down, and tried to make myself focus. I told myself I'd just keep taking calls, logging them, pretending nothing was wrong. But the headset rang again. The fire call. Same voice. Same scream. Same timestamp. I pressed mute halfway through. My heart was hammering, but I just couldn't listen to it again. And when it ended, I didn't even move to unmute. I just stared at the frozen numbers on the corner of my screen, like maybe if I looked hard enough, they'd change. They didn't. You start to notice things when time stops. Little details you've never paid attention to before. The low buzz of the fluorescent light above me. The faint tick inside my headset when the line was quiet. The tiny scratches on my desk from years of pens dragging across it. It made the silence worse, because it wasn't silent. It was filled with these tiny, repeating noises that felt like they were closing in. I kept glancing toward the wall clock. I hated it. I hated how still it was. It felt like it was watching me back. At some point, though I couldn't tell you how long, I tried calling out on the radio to the others on shift. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. I checked the dispatch logs for any sign of life from the other operators. Blank. No new entries. No messages. It was like I was the only one left in the building. Or maybe I wasn't. I kept thinking about the fire call, the man's voice, the panic, the scream in the background, and the popping sounds. I'd assumed it was the fire, but the more I replayed in my head, the more I realized it didn't sound like wood crackling. It sounded closer, like fingers tapping on glass. I should have gone outside. I should have walked to the front desk and just left. But there was this feeling deep in my gut that if I opened that door, it wouldn't lead where I thought it would. I know that sounds insane, but when everything else is broken, you start trusting the feeling. I stayed. I sat back down. The headset rang again. I didn't answer. It rang and rang until the sound didn't even feel like ringing anymore. It was just part of the air vibrating through me. And then it stopped. The room felt heavier after that, like the air had thickened just a little more. I picked up my phone again, just to check, just to hope. 3:07. Still. And then something changed. A drop of condensation rolled down the side of my coffee cup. Slowly, painfully slow. I watched it cling to the paper edge, then fall, landing on the desk. A sound in the middle of a soundless night. And just for a second, I thought maybe time had started again. But the clock didn't move. Nothing else moved. It was just that drop, like the world had given me a single frame of movement and then taken it back. That was when I knew I wasn't imagining it. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't my mind playing tricks. Something was holding me here, and it wasn't letting go. I don't remember when I stopped counting the minutes. Maybe it was because the minutes themselves had stopped existing. The clock on the wall still said 3:07 a.m. The little red second hand was frozen between the numbers, angled just enough to make my eyes twitch every time I looked at it. I'd stared at it so long my vision had started to blur. But I knew it hadn't moved. Not since the moment after the second call came in. I had already checked my watch, my phone, even the old analog clock above the break room sink. Every one of them. 3:07. At first, I thought maybe it was the power, or a glitch. But the monitors still hummed, the radios still hissed with static, and the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed in that way that always made me feel like they were just a little too close to burning out. The world was still running. Time just wasn't. And the calls, they kept coming. I don't mean normal calls. Not the random traffic accidents or false alarms. These were the same. The exact same voices I'd already heard tonight. The first one was the woman. Her voice was ragged, frantic, the sound of something burning in the background. She screamed for help, said her house was on fire. I could hear wood splintering. I'd taken her call already, word for word, but she said it again, like nothing had happened between the first time and now. I listened, my mouth going dry, and realized I was even answering her the same way I had before. Like muscle memory. Ma'am, stay on the line. What's your address? She told me. Same tone. Same breathless breaks between words. Same choking cough when the smoke caught her throat. I knew exactly when she would cry. Exactly when she would drop the phone. And she did. The second call was the man. Deep voice. Tight with fear. He said someone was in his house. Walking down the hall toward his room. I'd heard him before, too. He even paused in the same places, like he was reading from some invisible script. By the third repeat call, I wasn't even scared. I was unsettled, like I'd accidentally wandered into a loop and couldn't find the way out. I kept telling myself it was a coincidence. But how many coincidences freeze the clocks? At some point, I stopped writing down the incident numbers. There wasn't a point anymore. The air in the room felt heavy. Not hot, not cold, just thick. Every breath I took felt like I was inhaling something that wasn't supposed to be there. Something too still. I tried standing up, pacing, but no matter where I moved, the shadows didn't shift. They just stayed there, exactly where they'd been when 307 had locked itself in place. I thought about walking outside, just stepping out into the lot, feeling the air, seeing if maybe the world out there was still moving. But something stopped me. It wasn't fear exactly. It was more like a certainty, a gut-deep understanding that if I left this room, I wouldn't find anything out there except the same thing that was happening in here. Stillness. The phone rang again. That harsh, old tone that's too loud for the quiet. I didn't want to answer it, but my hand moved anyway. It was the child this time. I'd spoken to him before too, about an hour ago, before all this started. He whispered into the phone like he was hiding under a blanket. Said there was someone in his room. Someone smiling at him. His voice didn't shake. Not in fear. Not anymore. It was like whatever had scared him the first time, he'd already accepted it now. He was just reporting it. I don't know how many more calls I took after that. They all blurred together. Every voice the same as before. Every sentence exactly where I remembered it. Even the silences between words were identical. And outside of those voices, there was nothing. No sirens. No chatter from the other dispatchers. I was alone. I kept telling myself to check the time again, but I didn't need to. I already knew. It was still 3:07, and it was going to stay 3:07. I don't know how much time passed before I noticed something new. A fifth call, one I didn't recognize. I picked up the receiver. There was breathing. Slow, steady, almost calm. And then, "I've been waiting for you to notice," the voice said. It wasn't anyone I'd spoken to before. It was low, measured. Like whoever it was didn't need to raise their voice to be heard. "Notice what?" I asked. My own voice sounded too loud in the stillness. "That they're not calling you. You're calling them." I froze. The hair on my arms lifted. "That's not," I started, but then I realized I hadn't actually seen the phones light up before I picked them up. Every time, my hand had already been moving toward the receiver, like I knew it was going to ring. The line went silent, but the call didn't end. I set the receiver down slowly, my palm leaving a faint sweaty print on the desk. The clock on the wall didn't move. The lights didn't flicker, but the air felt closer, like whatever was on the other end of those calls was now in the room with me, that I didn't want to look outside. I really didn't. But when every clock in the room has been frozen for God knows how long, when the phone keeps ringing with the same voices saying the same things, and when the air feels like it's holding its breath, you start to wonder if the world outside is any different. My desk faces the far wall, not the windows. That's intentional. Too much light in your peripheral vision can distract you during a call. I've worked nights here long enough to know that. But now, with nothing else to measure the passing of time, I felt this slow, dragging pull, like something wanted me to turn and see. I told myself I'd just glance, just to prove it's all in my head. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. My chair wheels squeaked as I slowly turned. The big window, stretched along the side of the dispatch room, looking out over the parking lot and the dark street beyond. At first, it looked normal. Empty lot, street lamps, a faint orange glow over the rooftops from the highway. But then I saw them. They weren't moving. At least a dozen people. Just standing. Not clumped together, not scattered far apart. They were spaced out like chess pieces, each one fixed in place. I could see the shapes of their coats, their hair catching the streetlight. Some were closer, maybe just past the curb. Others were in the shadows, across the road. I thought maybe there was a power outage across the city, and people were outside, waiting. But no, that didn't fit. These people weren't shifting their weight, or checking their phones, or talking to each other. They weren't doing anything. They weren't even breathing. I pressed my hand to the glass. The cold seeped through instantly. The nearest one, a man in a dark jacket, maybe in his 40s, was facing me. His chin was tilted slightly up, his eyes wide open. His mouth was closed, but there was something in his expression, like he was right on the verge of speaking. I kept staring, waiting for a blink, some sign of life. Nothing. I let my eyes move down the row of them. I recognized one. Mrs. Calloway, an old woman who calls every week about the boys she hears in her attic. She was wearing the same faded pink cardigan I'd seen her in last Tuesday. Her head was turned toward me, too, her lips just barely parted. I felt this heavy, invisible weight settle into my chest. The same minute, the same calls, and now, the same people. I leaned back from the window, my heart drumming too loud in my ears. My headset was still on, and I realized the phone line was open. "Hello," I said, voice trembling. No answer, just faint static. I almost hung up, but then, tell me, it was her, Mrs. Calloway. The same exact tone, same exact pause as before. Word for word. I spun back to the window. Her lips didn't move, not even a twitch. I pulled the headset off, so fast it yanked my hair. The phone kept ringing anyway. Something shifted in my stomach. A crawling dread, like the air in the room was pressing against my skin. I could almost feel their eyes on me, though none of them were any closer. They were all still locked in place, statues in the night. Except one. At first, I didn't notice him. He was farther back, half in shadow, maybe 2 houses down. His outline was just a little wrong, taller than the others, narrow shoulders, and he was moving, not walking toward me, just swaying gently from side to side, like a tree in a wind I couldn't feel. Then, without breaking the sway, he raised his hand, and he waved. It wasn't a friendly wave. Not exactly. It was slow, careful, like he was testing how much movement the world would allow him. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to turn away, but I was frozen myself now, caught in this awful, silent exchange. He must have known I was looking straight at him, because after a few seconds, he stopped swaying. His arm lowered, and then he smiled. Even from that distance, I could see it, too wide, pulling the corners of his mouth, almost his ears. His head tilted slow as syrup. He didn't blink. I stumbled back from the window, almost knocking over my chair. The phone on my desk rang again, and again, and again. Each time, I didn't answer. Each time, it still went silent after the first ring, like whoever was calling knew I wasn't picking up. I sat in the far corner of the room, knees pulled to my chest, eyes locked on the floor. I told myself I wouldn't look again, that if I just waited, the clocks would move, the calls would change, the world would start again. But the pull came back, like a whisper behind my ear, telling me to check. When I finally glanced up, the window was dark. The street lamps had gone out. I could barely see the shapes now, just faint outlines. But they were still there. Every one of them in the exact same spot. All except him. He was gone. I scanned the street, the shadows, the houses beyond. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd be sick. I pressed myself against the wall, my eyes darting between every patch of dark outside. A soft tapping sound broke through the silence. I turned my head slowly toward the far end of the room. The sound was coming from the window. Tap, tap, tap. I inched forward, barely breathing. The glass was too dark to see clearly, but there was something pale just behind it. A hand, thin fingers spread wide, palm flat against the glass. It stayed there for a moment, then began to slide, slowly, leaving a faint smear as it moved. My stomach turned cold. I took a step back, then another. The hand withdrew, disappearing into the dark. I waited for the next tap, the next movement. Nothing came. The phone rang again. And this time I answered. I didn't say hello. I just listened. There was breathing on the other end. Slow, deliberate. Then a voice, low, calm, almost cheerful. Why aren't you waving back? I hung up so hard the phone cracked against the desk. My legs felt weak, my hands shaking uncontrollably. When I dared to look again, the window was empty. No shapes, no street lamps, no night sky. Just black, like something had swallowed the outside whole. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw myself. Headset back on, hand reaching for the phone, even though I wasn't moving at all, that I wasn't supposed to be in the archives. They told me it was a graveyard for paperwork, a place where old incident reports went to die. But it was my third week at the dispatch center, and they'd sent me down here to keep busy while the regular staff handled calls upstairs. Basically, they wanted me out of the way. The basement air was thick, dry, and still. My flashlight beam drifted across rows of dented metal shelves, each lined with cardboard boxes, their labels curling and faded. Most were marked with dates from decades ago. You could tell no one had touched some of them in years. I was looking for a stack of training logs from 2004. That's all. But that's not what I found. In the far corner, past a crooked column where the paint had bubbled from a leak years back, there was a box that didn't look like the others. It wasn't labeled. No date. No case number. Just plain brown cardboard, the edges stained with what looked like old water damage. It sat alone on the bottom shelf, like someone had shoved it there in a hurry. I probably should have ignored it. But curiosity's a stupid, loud thing. I crouched down, my knees cracking in the silence, and slid the box toward me. The cardboard felt brittle, like it might disintegrate in my hands. When I opened it, a wave of dust rolled out, making me cough. Inside were cassette tapes. Dozens of them. Each one was black, scuffed from years of handling, with tiny white stickers on the side where someone had written in faded marker. Only most of the stickers were blank. A few had dates, but they weren't in any order I recognized. Some just had times, 3:11 a.m. or 11:52 p.m., and nothing else. No case numbers, no caller names, no filing tags. That shouldn't have been possible. Every emergency call is logged. Every tape has to be tagged before it's stored. The idea of unlogged tapes just existing down here was unsettling in a way I couldn't explain. I picked one up and turned it over in my hand. The sticker was peeling. Underneath it, someone had carved something into the plastic, not written, carved. 3 letters, D&T. My gut told me that wasn't a name. I didn't have a player down here. But I remember that there was an old cassette deck in the training room upstairs, something they used during orientation to play historic calls for rookies. It felt wrong to take the tape, like it was property of someone who might still be watching. But my hand closed around it anyway. When I stood, the rest of the basement seemed darker than before. The silence heavier. Upstairs, the training room was empty. The hum of the vending machine was the only sound. I slid the tape into the deck and pressed play. For a few seconds, there was nothing but static. Then, a voice. Not the voice of caller. It was faint at first, like it was speaking from the other end of a long tunnel. Help me. The words were strained, broken, almost whispered. Ma'am, can you tell me where you are? Another voice asked, calm, professional. That was the dispatcher. Then there was silence. 5 seconds. 10. I leaned closer. The caller's voice came again, sharper now. He's in the house. My heart picked up. Can you tell me your address? The dispatcher repeated. The caller didn't answer that. Instead, she said something that didn't fit. He's wearing my face. I froze. The dispatcher went quiet, too. You could hear him breathing. Then he said, Ma'am, do you know this person? Static hissed between them. The woman spoke again, faster, her voice shaking. He's smiling, but his eyes aren't moving. And then, a sound. Not a scream. Not a bang. A wet, dragging noise. Like fabric being pulled across the floor. The dispatcher's voice rose, urgent now. Ma'am? Ma'am, are you? The tape cut off. Just like that. No end of call tone. No click. I sat there with my hands on the player, staring at nothing, my brain scrambling to make sense of what I'd just heard. It didn't feel like one of those fake training scenarios. The panic in her voice was too real, too desperate. I pressed rewind. The player word. I listened again. It was the same. Every breath, every word, every pause. But something was different. The dispatcher's voice. It wasn't the same the second time. The first time, it had been deep, male, steady. Now, it sounded like a woman. Softer, younger. But the caller's words were identical. I felt a prickling under my skin, like the air had shifted in the room. I rewound it again. Press play. Same words. Same dragging sound. But now the dispatcher's voice sounded like mine. I slammed stop and ejected the tape, my hands trembling. The label on the cassette was gone. I swear it had been there before. All that was left was the carved D&T. I shoved the tape into my pocket and decided to put the box back where I found it. When I got to the basement, the corner shelf was empty. The box was gone, but I didn't touch the box again until my next night's shift. It sat under my desk like it was waiting for me, the cardboard edges soft from years of storage, the masking tape across the top flaking at the corners. I kept telling myself it was just a pile of junk, old calls that never got properly filed, but that didn't explain why I kept thinking about it. It was like the box had weight, not just physical weight, a pull. At around 1 a.m., the station was dead quiet. No calls for the past 30 minutes. The hum of the fluorescent lights louder than my own breathing. I reached down and slid the box up onto my lap. I peeled back the tape. Inside, the smell hit me first, dry paper, dust, and something faintly metallic like old blood or rusted tools. A neat stack of black cassette tapes sat in 2 uneven rows. No labels, no dates, just blank. I pulled one out and turned it over my hands. It was warm, warmer than the air in the room. I know how strange that sounds, but I swear it was like it had been sitting in someone's pocket just seconds before. I dug an old player out from a drawer, the kind we only keep around for evidence playback. My supervisor, Mark, was out on break, so no one was around to give me the usual, "Why are you wasting time on that?" speech. I slid the tape in, pressed play. Static at first, then a faint, trembling voice. A woman. 911. Please, you have to send someone. Her voice cracked on the last word. There's a fire. I can smell it. No, I see it, the whole block. There was shouting in the background, the sound of glass breaking. Sirens. Then nothing. But here's the thing. I recognized the address. It was on Pine Street, 2 miles from the station. And there was no fire on Pine Street. Not that night. Not that week. Not in the past year, as far as I knew. I rewound it, played again. The woman's voice trembled with urgency. It didn't sound fake. It didn't sound like a prank. I took the tape out, slid it back into the box, and grabbed another one. The second tape. It started with heavy breathing. Then a man's voice, deep and rushed. I don't have much time. Listen to me. There's going to be a derailment. The freight train, Bridgeport line, for 15 tomorrow. I paused the tape and looked up at the station's digital clock. 1:23 a.m. Bridgeport line. 4:15 tomorrow. I could hear the urgency in his tone, the way his voice wavered like he was looking over his shoulder the whole time he spoke. When I hit play again, the man's voice cut off mid-word. Static, like the tape had been damaged. I stared at the machine for a long time, my mind running in loops. These weren't prank calls. They weren't fakes. They were something else. I told myself I'd prove it by picking one at random and checking if the event had ever happened. That would settle it. The third tape was worse. A kid's voice this time. Couldn't have been older than 12. There's someone outside my school. He's just standing there, looking in. We're all hiding under the desks. There was a faint echo in his voice, like the call was coming from a wide, empty hallway. I think he's coming inside. The kid's words dissolved into static. I felt cold all over. I knew the name of the school, he said, and I knew it hadn't been in the news for anything like that. I checked the date on the call log for the year it should have been from, based on the model of the cassette. Nothing. No incident. So, either these were fabricated recordings made to sound like real 911 calls, or they were calls that were never logged. Or, no, that idea was too big, too strange. I looked back at the box. 20, maybe 30 more tapes sat there, silent and still. I put them all back, closed the lid, shoved the box back under the desk. The next night, I couldn't stop thinking about the one with the train. Bridgeport line, 4:15. It was 3:58 a.m. when I caved. I stepped outside, the air sharp and cool. The tracks weren't far from the station. I could see the faint red signal light in the distance. I waited. For 10. The rumble started. A freight train emerged, slow and steady, its cars groaning under the weight of cargo. For 15 exactly, nothing happened. I let out a shaky laugh, embarrassed at myself for even believing. That's when the third car lurched sideways, just slightly, just enough for a shower of sparks to rain from underneath. It righted itself almost instantly, the motion barely noticeable unless you were staring right at it. The train kept moving. No crash, no derailment. But for that split second, it could have. I stood there long after it passed, the chill in my bones deeper than the night air. The next few shifts blurred together. I kept pulling the box out, kept listening. Floods that never happened, crimes that were never reported, accidents that came close but didn't quite occur. But the more I listened, the stranger it got. Some of the calls weren't warnings. They were retellings. People describing events in the past tense, but events I didn't remember ever hearing about. It already happened, one man said, his voice tight with grief. They're all gone. You didn't come fast enough. When I checked the date, the call was logged to a year that hadn't even happened yet. I thought about telling Mark, but every time I opened my mouth, the words felt stupid. Hey, I found a magic box of calls from the future. Yeah, that'd go over well. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was supposed to do something with them. That's when I noticed the handwriting. Inside the box, under the bottom row of tapes, there was a folded piece of paper. The ink had bled into the paper from age, but the words were still readable. Play them in order. That's all it said. No name, no explanation. Just that. The next tape I played didn't start with a voice at all. It was the sound of my own dispatch room. The same background hum, the faint click of a computer mouse, even the muffled sound of the vending machine dropping a snack. Then my voice. 911. What's your emergency? I froze. The caller's voice was quiet. You're not supposed to be listening to this yet. Static swallowed the rest. From that night on, I didn't sleep well. I started dreaming about the tapes. Sometimes I'd dream I was sitting at my desk, pressing play, and all I'd hear was someone breathing. Other times, I'd dream I was the one calling in, describing something I couldn't quite see, a shadow moving just beyond my vision. But the worst ones were when the person on the other end of the line would start describing me. What I was wearing, where I was sitting, how I was holding the phone, like they could see me. 3 nights ago, I decided to stop. I shoved the box to the far corner of the storage closet, behind old printer cartridges and broken headsets. I told myself it would stay there. But when I came in for my shift last night, it was back under my desk. No one admitted to moving it. No one even knew what I was talking about when I asked. I'm telling you all this because I think I'm starting to believe the calls. Not all of them. Not fully. But enough to notice when small things line up. A crash that almost happened. A stranger seen outside a building hours before it actually opened. A sudden smell of smoke that faded before anyone found a fire. And now, there's one I can't ignore. The latest tape I played was a woman's voice, trembling. I'm looking right at you, she said, through the glass. I'm in a windowless dispatch center. At least, I thought I was. When I turned around, I realized there's a small high window behind the shelving unit. I never noticed it before. I keep thinking about moving the shelf, but something tells me once I do, the voice on the next tape will make a lot more sense that I didn't want to listen to the last one. I've gone through almost all the tapes already, maybe 40 or 50 of them over the past week. Every single one had been worse than the last. Some were just strange. A voice calling in about a house fire, giving an address that didn't exist. A man reporting a pileup on the highway when the roads outside were dry and empty. Calls about accidents that weren't real, or at least hadn't happened yet. But others were harder to explain away. I'd hear these moments, sometimes halfway through, where the caller's tone would change. Like they realized something was wrong with me. Not with the situation, not with the emergency, but with the dispatcher. Like they were hearing something I couldn't hear. One woman stopped mid-sentence and whispered, "It's behind you," and then hung up. Another caller, I swear, I still remember his breathing, started laughing halfway through giving his address. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was jagged, like his throat was catching. He just kept saying, I know you, I know you, I know you, until the tape cut out. But the last tape, the one still sitting at the bottom of the box, I'd been avoiding it. It wasn't just because it was marked differently. It was because it had no date. Every other tape had a white label, the year written in fading blue pen, the month, the day. This one had a label that looked torn off, like someone had peeled it away on purpose. And on the spine, written in black marker, was a single word, keep. No one in the department could tell me why. It was close to midnight when I finally decided to play it. I waited until the office was empty. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I told myself it was just curiosity, that I needed to log it like the others. But really, it was more than that. I'd started having dreams about the box, about the tapes. In the dreams, I wasn't listening to them. I was inside them. I'd wake up with that hiss of background noise in my ears. Sometimes I'd swear I could still hear voices under it, just faint enough to almost understand. The tape was cold when I picked it up. Not cool to the touch, actually cold, like it had been sitting in a freezer. I turned it over in my hand, squinting at the way the plastic casing was scratched. There were long, deep gouges on one side, as if someone had tried to destroy it. I slotted it into the player and pressed the button. The first thing I heard was breathing. It was shaky, fast, not quite panicked, but close. And it wasn't coming from a caller. It was coming from the dispatcher side of the line. That made my stomach twist. Every single recording I'd gone through had been from the caller's perspective, the mic on their end. I wasn't sure why this one was reversed. There was a faint rustle, like the headset mic brushing against fabric. And then a voice. My voice. At first I thought it was just someone who sounded like me. But then I heard the way he cleared his throat, that awkward little hitch in the middle. I've heard it my whole life. This is 9/11. What's your... The sentence cut off like something interrupted him. Interrupted me. The breathing quickened. The background hiss grew louder, crackling, almost distorting the words. No, 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 no. I felt my palms get sweaty. Oh God, it's here. There was a scraping sound. Plastic hitting wood. The kind of noise a phone makes when it's dropped but still connected. And then I heard it. My own voice. But it wasn't the same. It was slower, deeper, almost mocking. Don't hang up. The line went dead. I just sat there, staring at the player. The little reels inside had stopped spinning. My reflection in the glass cover looked pale and warped. The rational part of my brain kicked in. It's just a prank. Someone recorded over an old tape. It's a joke they played on rookies. But if that was true, why hadn't anyone told me? Why did this tape have no date? And why, under the word keep, had I just noticed another faint word scratched into the plastic? Again, that night, I didn't go home. I couldn't. I stayed in the office with the box, pulling tape after tape out, looking for something I'd missed. But I kept thinking about the last one, about the way that other version of my voice said, don't hang up. I tried to sleep on the break room couch, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself in the headset. Not me now, but the me from the tape. Sweaty, wide-eyed, begging for help. And something standing behind me, just out of frame. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find out where that last call came from. I took the tape to the records room. We've got old logbooks for everything. Dates, addresses, caller IDs. It's a mess, but if you dig long enough, you can find almost anything. Only this time I found nothing. The call didn't exist. No date. No entry. No timestamp. Like it was never supposed to happen. That afternoon, I heard something strange. I was sitting at my desk when my headset, the real one, not from the tape, crackled. Not the phone ringing. Not an incoming call. Just a faint static hiss. I lifted the mic closer, thinking maybe it was feedback. And then, don't hang up. I froze. It was my voice. Exactly my voice. But I hadn't spoken. I ripped the headset off and threw it on the desk. My heart was pounding so hard I felt sick. When I looked at the phone display, it didn't even show a line open. I told my supervisor about it later, but he just looked at me like I was overworked. It's probably bleed from another channel, he said. Happens sometimes, but it didn't feel like bleed. It felt like something using the line. Something that knew me. That night, I went back to the tape again. I don't know what I thought would happen. Maybe I'd noticed something in the background I'd missed. Maybe I could prove it wasn't really me. But when I hit play, it was different. The breathing at the start was slower. The panic came later. The words were almost the same, but not quite. It's not supposed to be here yet. I'd never heard that before. I was sure of it. And then, after the drop, after the scrape of the phone, the other voice, my voice, didn't just say don't hang up. It said, don't hang up this time. I didn't sleep after that. I've been avoiding the tape for 2 days now. But sometimes when I'm walking past the evidence room where the box is locked up, I swear I can hear it spinning. Not playing, just turning. Like it's waiting for me to press the button. And sometimes I think I hear breathing on the other side of the door. The worst part? When I check the logbook now, the last call on the last page, it's mine. It has today's date. And it hasn't happened yet that I didn't clock out that morning. At least, I don't remember doing it. The night before is a blur in my head. Not the normal kind of tired blur, either. This was heavier. Like a piece of my memory had been pulled out and thrown away, and I was left with a gap. A cold, ringing kind of gap. I know I was at my desk, headset on, when the last call came through. But it's hard to explain how that moment feels in my mind. It's like trying to hold water in your hands and realizing your palms are full of holes. What I do remember is standing in front of the filing cabinet. It's an old metal thing shoved in the far corner of dispatch. Nobody uses it anymore. Everything's digital now, but for some reason, I had it open. My fingers were running over the hanging folders, brushing dust off the labels. I don't even remember pulling it open. And then nothing. No goodbye to my supervisor. No see you tomorrow. Just nothing. The rest of the night is a blank stretch of static in my head. When I woke up, it wasn't in my bed. It wasn't even at home. I was in the break room. My head was on the table, arms sprawled out. My jacket was gone. My watch was gone. The clock on the wall read 6:14 a.m., and sunlight was just starting to leak through the blinds. I sat up so fast the chair tipped over. My throat was dry. The office was empty. It should have been empty. Night shift leaves before the day. Crew shows up, but something about it felt wrong. The air was heavy, like it had been closed up for years. And there was this smell, like burnt paper. Not strong, just faint enough to make me question if I was imagining it. I tried to shake it off. I grabbed my phone to text my supervisor, tell them I'd overslept in the break room, but there was no signal. Not low bars, no service. That's when I saw the cassette tape. It was sitting on the middle of the break room table, right where my head had been. No case, no label, just the tape. And written in smudged blue pen on the top edge. Play me. You know when something is so out of place your brain just freezes? That was me. I didn't touch it right away. Instead, I walked back into the dispatch room. The filing cabinet was still open. All the drawers. Every folder slightly pulled forward, like someone had searched through them in a hurry. That's when I realized the folders weren't the usual stuff, incident reports, training manuals, that kind of thing. They were names, handwritten tabs. Some I didn't recognize. Others, I did. Coworkers, people I trained with. A few of them I knew had quit or transferred. And then my stomach flipped because I saw one with my name on it. It was near the very back. I pulled it out. Inside was just a single sheet of paper. No letterhead. No date. Just 3 words, all caps, in the same faded blue pen as the tape. Not yet filed. I should have left. I should have walked straight out the front door, thrown that tape in the trash, and never looked back. But curiosity is a stupid thing. And maybe some part of me already knew that this was connected to the other tapes I found. The ones with the wrong dates. The one with my own voice screaming. So I went back to my desk, slid the tape into the player, and pressed play. At first, it was just hiss. Then a voice. My voice. It was ragged, frantic like I'd been running. This is dispatch. There was a loud clatter like the phone dropping, and then I screamed. Not a startled yelp. Not pain. This was deeper. Animal. Something pulled out of me. The sound cut in and out, like the tape was damaged. But I could still hear myself shouting words I couldn't quite make out. My breathing was harsh, almost choking. And then, faintly, there was another sound behind me. A voice. Low. Calm. Almost whispering. It said my name. Slowly. And then it said, not yet filed. The tape went silent. I sat there for a long time. Long enough for the sunlight to stretch across the room. Long enough for me to hear the front door open. Footsteps came in, soft, deliberate. I turned in my chair, expecting maybe the day's supervisor, but the dispatch room was empty. Still, the sound kept coming. Closer. Not from the hallway, from inside the room. I looked at the filing cabinet. One of the drawers was slowly sliding shut, all on its own. Metal on metal. When the day crew came in, I was gone. That's what they told people later, anyway. They said my car was still in the lot. My jacket was still draped over the back of my chair. My headset was lying on the desk. But I wasn't there. The funny thing is, I remember all of that. I remember sitting at my desk, listening to the drawer slide shut. I remember standing up. I remember walking to the cabinet, my fingers brushing over the tabs, stopping at the one with my name on it. The paper inside wasn't blank anymore. It had a date. Today's date. It didn't find me in the building. They didn't find a tape on my desk the next morning. No case. No label. Just smudged blue pen across the top. Play me. They did. And they heard my voice, breathing hard, whispering from somewhere far away. I said, help me. And then, not yet filed.